Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody, both in the dais and in the audience, to our March 28th Finance Committee meeting. First order of business will be pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had minutes sent out, right? So if those in attendance had a chance to review the minutes, I'd appreciate a motion.
I just have one comment, and I don't know the minutes, I didn't get, I'm not on the Mashpee.
You gotta speak into your microphone.
I got the public comment, and under the public comment, and I really don't know, Mike, how you introduced me, but the comment is that Mrs. Furbush is a retired first vice president of retail banking. I'm a vice president of retail banking. I was first vice president of the Peninsula Council Homeowners Association. So just for correction purposes.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to have it right.
So I'll entertain a motion with the correction.
So move we accept the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Chris?
Abstention.
Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
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 I'm not aware of any appointments and hearings, because we have appointed Darlene last time as the additional shortest vice president that we have on the Finance Committee board. I don't have any communications or correspondence unless somebody else has some here. So I guess we go right into, we don't have any old business, because it's all brand new to us going forward. So I guess if you guys are okay and gals are okay, we'll go right into the review and approval of the town meeting warrant articles. I guess there'll be some discussion along the way, but that's kind of where we are.
And we voted on all these, right? We don't have to vote on anything else unless someone wants to revote something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is not a bad time. Anybody want to make a comment or go on record of anything? This is a good time to do it. Probably you want to wait till after we go through the articles. Okay. And everybody took a shot at this, so we're all equally at fault if they're terrible, and we're all equally to be appraised that if they're great. Right, Jeff?
Absolutely.
So Article 1. How do you want to do this? Chris, do we normally we don't read the article again, do we?
Just do the explanations.
Just, yeah, I think just the explanation is fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're all comfortable with what the article is, so we're just going to read the explanation, is that correct? All right.
I might reserve the right later to talk about one of the articles, but I'll do that when I get to it.
I guess I would, maybe the best thing to do is have the person who wrote the explanation read it, and then we can chat about it, is that okay?
So I was 1. Explanation for article number 1, which is snow and ice. This is the only town account that's allowed a deficit spend. $116,570 was approved for this year. This year's the DPW spent, we don't know what the number is, and I don't believe on the final draft
No,
two.
it
It's
doesn't.
not here.
There's a
They
number.
made it it's a sum of money to be transferred.
Right.
So I don't think
So
they even
we-
know yet.
We should be getting it, I would think. We have to get it before.
Assuming the
town
snow
meeting.
stops sometime.
Yeah. You're voting to fund the difference from free cash.
And this is, when I say we voted on everything, I think we still left this open as being voted at the town meeting.
We did.
Yes.
Oh, no,
Yes.
at the meeting before the town meeting, right?
Correct.
Right.
We can do it either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the same language that,
Would you like to state a sum of money, like you had suggested, or just keep it the way it is?
I don't feel comfortable putting a sum of money in, because if it's wrong, then we have to change it.
Yeah, but the thing is, this may go to print before they have a final number.
Yeah.
They will go to print.
Yeah.
I think we gotta put a little pressure on, I mean, maybe it should be something as of April first, this is the number that we need to deficit spend. Do you know what I mean? If at town meeting the number's different, at least we cover ourselves and say, at the date we had to go to press, do you know what I mean? That's the number we needed, that's the number.
Why don't we motion to accept up to 116,570, which was budgeted? Unless, I mean, we can do that, because that's the money that was budgeted. Otherwise, you're
No,
guessing.
no, this article is to appropriate the extra.
The extra money,
Yeah.
that's 116's already been approved.
Right. So it's whatever's over the 116,000.
I mean, I heard something crazy like 600,000 or something, right? From Dawn, but that was
How much did you
very
hear?
preliminary. I thought, I could be completely wrong, but I thought I heard something like 600,000.
I don't think.
I think I heard over 200,000, but that would have been.
Okay,
Yeah,
like I said, I could be wrong, but maybe, who's the DPW liaison? I could reach out to Catherine. You are? Or maybe if the committee agrees, like I said, we could find out what the deficit spend is now.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we could publish that to say something in effect as of our last meeting.
I like that idea.
I do too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Well, the explanation is fine. That doesn't
Yeah.
have to change.
But the only thing I think we would
So they
change
wanna
is the
vote on it.
DPW spent X as of April, whatever, maybe, whatever the date is.
might be, we might wanna do it just at the end of the month, March 31st, and then take it from there. Yeah,
Yes.
that way it'll be consistent with the way they might close their books and,
Okay. If you don't mind reaching out, Phil.
So I'll word the explanation then.
I'm sorry?
Does this year the DP, add the language in the explanation, I guess, right?
Yeah, so let's just
Yeah.
say, it would say, first sentence will be fine. This year, the DPW spent 200,000 on snow and ice removal. You're voting to fund, spent 200,000 on snow removal as of March 31st, 2018. Whatever that number is, then we could add in, right? And then you just voting to fund the difference from free cash. Or I don't know if we wanna put available funds.
Funds available for appropriation.
Okay, yes.
That's what they call it, Kathy, right?
Funds available for appropriation.
The only other question I would ask, and Chris, you've been, this is a special, so that nothing that is voted on has any impact on the tax rate. Do we want to add that at the do we want to add it at the beginning of the special warrant, or we want to add it after each one? Because we've done it both ways, I think. If you look at the top, under the town, special meeting, second paragraph, money has been collected and available, approval will not impact the budget. Is that going to be okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we go to Article 2.
What I do, that's mine. This article is to release funding that is already in the pipeline through the Kids Club Enterprise Capital Expense Account. These funds are requested to be released for much-needed repairs and improvements, including issues that have come about from a drainage problem, replacement of a deck, and replacement of toddler play area. Release of these funds will not affect the tax rate.
Effect.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, suggestions? Are we okay with that? With the exception perhaps of the last line, if we're going to go, you want to do it, we should be consistent, right? Either put it in each one or take it
Right.
out. How you want to do it?
Take it out.
Take it out. Wording, okay with everybody?
But the only question I had is, so the article is to release funding that is already in the pipeline.
Well,
Pipeline, or would it be already in an account?
that's fine. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I'm just,
right, it's in that account.
it's already in,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
already in
Yeah.
an
So
account,
it's already there,
right,
ready to be,
ready to be spent.
just right like I talked.
The way that, from a town perspective, they said, funds that have already been collected and are available. That's the terminology they use. We don't have to use the same terminology. I say that only because the first time I did this, every single one of my damn things were changed.
I'm good with whatever, really.
This article is release funding that is available, already available, or,
Already in the account or already available through the Kids Club, whatever you wanna do, fine, either way.
Already available, maybe?
Yeah,
Already
already
available.
available. Get rid of 3 words.
okay, Kathy?
Yep, I would just capitalize Kids Club,
Yep.
Yeah.
enterprise, capital expense account, all capitalized.
Yeah, I didn't
Yep.
mess
Okay.
with that much.
There we go.
I figured we'd
Okay. Number, or Article 3.
Yeah, Article 3 was mine. I didn't know a whole lot about the human resources accrual benefits account. So you'll probably need a little bit help to explain why we have to replenish. You know, the thought process I had put in there was that is, you know, a routine transfer, trying to get the concept that it's something that reoccurs.
The only argument I have, I hate to say routine, because it's almost like we have to do it every year because we
Yeah.
don't budget properly.
Yeah,
My understanding of that is that they, through the human resources, they try to estimate an accrued benefit.
right.
And every once in a while, those numbers come up short because of an HR issue. And as a result of that, that's why they had to do that. But they've already got money available, so it's not as though,
Yeah,
so I would say the article requests a transfer
Yeah.
from available funds.
mhm.
And eliminate, it will not impact
Yeah.
current.
And then article, just, it doesn't need to be capitalized.
Kathy, okay? 4?
This article fulfills contractual obligations regarding unpaid compensation.
I think that's accurate. Apparently, it's because of a contract obligation.
Right.
So, don't know if they want,
But there's 2 different things going on there,
yeah.
so I just try to keep it.
One's a
general.
retroactive and one's a settlement.
Right.
Okay. I think everybody in town's pretty much aware of the fact that we have contracts, right, for employers.
Yeah.
So 5 must have been assigned to,
No, it was unassigned.
was unassigned?
Ah.
Uh-oh.
It's freebie for you.
There's demerit for me. I guess I better take a shot at that one then.
This article,
This article, that's a good way to start.
You guys are aware what that is. This is, you know, this goes back to the land bank way back when, and CPC, and every year there's certain money, and of course, as we're getting to the end of the deal pretty quick, by 2019 or 20, there won't be a lot of money available for this whole thing. But every year, when the money is given to the towns, not every year, but in certain years, there's sort of a little bit of excess funds available. No matter what it is, it has to be broken down by the categories in which the money's allocated by, I guess, by general law. So, I would have said something like this article refers to, is a,
Would you like the writing we used last May?
That's a good idea.
you did it, didn't you?
No, but I've got last
ahead.
May's
What's it say?
statement here. So,
Copy and paste.
in May of each year, the town receives notification of the estimated percentage of state reimbursement to be received in the following fiscal year. This percentage is used in calculating the estimated revenues and reserves that are voted at the October town meeting. If the state has more CPA reimbursement funds available than what they had initially anticipated, the state will allocate those additional funds to the participating communities. This article appropriates 10% of the additional reimbursement funds received to each of the CPC reserves. Approval will have no impact on the final 2017 municipal tax rate. So other than the last line,
And not October, May, but,
this year, the CPC did not receive surplus funding. This is funding each year. The town accountant estimates what funding the town will get. And so the estimate was lower, it was conservative, and so this is the actual amount.
So this represents the actual amount that we should have.
Yes.
Was that the same it was last year?
I don't, I think.
It must be.
Last year, for a couple of years, we did get surplus funding, but this really is not surplus. It's,
Yeah, so it was an initial estimate that we estimated low
right. So
by
we
the
estimated
tune of
lower.
55.
And we
Yeah.
actually got like 19%. So there was $55,000 extra dollars, so it
Okay.
has to go into the reserves.
And it
If
has to
that
be
makes
split up
sense.
by 10, 10, 10.
So we can use some of the same language
Mhm.
from, just have to make sure we,
Just don't use
The
surplus.
word surplus or additional.
Maybe you just replace the word surplus with an initial estimate.
Mhm.
We wanna
so
use
something like this article makes up the difference between what was actually allocated to the town under the CPC allocated funds, something like that.
Right. Or as in the explanation, it's a cleanup article to meet the requirement of reserving funds from the supplemental distribution. The state reimbursement was 55,000 higher than the initial estimate, so that's why.
I'm fine with however we want to do it, as long as we come to some agreement on however we want to say it. It shouldn't be the same as the Board of Selectmen, because otherwise we can just say, see above.
Right.
You know, if you go to the second line in the Selectmen thing, take away the amount of it. FY 2018 CPA state reimbursement received by the town was 55,000 higher than the initial estimate. We're required to set aside 10% of those funds and deposit it into the reserves, period.
That sounds good.
All right, Kathy?
Say that again, the F.
So from the
It's, the
second,
beginning will say FY 2018 CPA state reimbursement received by the town of Mashpee
Okay,
was $55,038 higher than the initial estimate, period. We are required to set aside 10% of those excess funds and deposit them into each of the CPA reserves, period.
Mhm. That works.
And we've already said that there's no impact on the budget, so,
Mhm.
and we already know that it's coming from CPA, because that's what the thing's
Yep.
about. Okay.
Yep. No, that's cool.
6, I guess, was mine. You have it, well, I said that this article approves 3 parcels of land to be designated in perpetuity for affordable housing. CPA is funding $167,000 for the Habitat for Humanity project. And I said, the town of Mashpee continues to struggle with affordable housing, having only approximately 4.5%, I think that's the right number too, of town housing in the affordable category. The state has recommended that Mashpee achieve 10%. This article provides funding from the Community Preservation Fund, 10% affordable community housing reserve, money already set aside for affordable housing, to assist in enabling Habitat for Humanity in building 3 affordable housing homes, as well as purchasing property on 1 parcel for this purpose. This will enable 3 additional Mashpee families earning less than 65% of the area median income to become independent homeowners. Maybe a little long, but I thought it was,
Chris also submitted a brief explanation.
Yeah, I did. But I think mine was only the first 2 lines, no?
Yes,
Yeah. So no, I think that works.
you guys? Gals?
Yep.
A little
I'm good with
collaboration.
it.
When we go to Article 7, which, don't tell me I didn't assign that one.
that was Sylvester's.
Okay. we talked about this. I mean, it, is that park over here, is that called
I think it
Veterans
is.
Park?
I think so.
I would say, again, I'll jump in if you guys don't mind. This article supports the effort of Mashpee to honor those that have
Fought in the American Revolution from the.
well, yeah, that have whatever the word, in conflict or something like that. I'm trying to use the word. Because I think it's gonna go beyond this eventually.
Yes, but I think initially it's just for the Revolutionary War.
It's just for the Revolutionary War.
But it really only funds a.
Study.
A study,
A study,
Right,
right.
you know, conceptual design.
that's exactly what we, this article funds a study for
Yeah.
Conceptual design for a, Mashpee American Revolutionary War veteran.
Well, I think it does more, I think.
Oh,
does
it
all of
will
them,
do
don't they?
more, yeah.
So, I like the first part.
So how about, this project, funds the development of a conceptual design, including necessary costs and necessary costs, period. Then if you wanna get into,
A design for, but this is only Wampanoag, is that correct? That's
Well,
my-
I don't think so.
I don't believe
Yeah.
so. I think initially there was a talk, but I think it's the Historic Commission, it's about all, that, the last I heard, talking to the Historic Commission, was that it's
Right.
eventually everybody.
Right, right,
I mean, you start with this, but,
right.
plus it has to receive matching funds in order to move
yeah,
forward.
yeah.
They received funds.
They did get the matching.
This, yeah, I think, Chris, this article, provides funds. Yeah, I'm trying to get the right word. We want to honor, basically, they want to honor veterans, and this one's about the Revolutionary War. I don't know if we want to do anything about the tribe, I don't know if that's important or not, to put in there.
To honor veterans who have served in the American Revolution.
Serve, what I was trying to say, yeah. This article provides funding for the,
Design.
for the design of a, for the
I would
for
just
the
say
development
design.
of a conceptual design to honor Mashpee
Mashpee
American
military
Revolutionary War veterans. Probably all we need. Is that, I
Because
mean,
that's really all it does.
that's all it does.
Mhm.
Yep.
How'd
Read
that,
back again?
This project funds the development of a conceptual design.
this article, right?
This this article. This article funds the development of a conceptual design to honor Mashpee American Revolutionary War veterans.
Mhm.
You guys okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I still would like some clarity about who's for. I mean, it's fine whoever's for. I just remember reading and hearing that it was particularly for honor the Wampanoag tribe folks, which is fine. But you're saying it might be everybody or something.
Well, in the explanation given by the town, it does say that the Historical District Commission has identified the names of 45 Wampanoag tribe members comprised of 9 different regiments. The town of Mashpee participated in the Revolutionary War, so.
Well, yeah.
That makes a difference. I'm just curious. That's all.
And we were told that it was gonna be all, but this doesn't say that.
Well, if you read the first page, first thing, the goal of this project is to honor Mashpee American Revolutionary War veterans,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah.
It just goes on, I think, to clarify that they've identified that there's 45 tribe members. I mean, doesn't say that it wouldn't recognize
Non-tribe.
Right.
non-tribe
Right, right,
members, yeah,
right.
regular.
That's cool.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that there are, right? I mean, I don't know.
I think they said, I met with the historical commission on something else, and they said there were others.
There are.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I hate to say that I hate to make it sound like exclusively for
No,
that,
I'm just,
Right.
I'm just
when
curious.
it's not,
for
but I don't know,
clarification.
honestly.
Well, personal curiosity. Okay, thank you.
We can always say what we just said, and say something, the last line could be, at present, 45 of the Wampanoag tribe members have been identified, or something like that. That doesn't say that's all it's gonna be, but it says,
I'd stay away from it.
stay away from it?
I'd stick with pretty much with referencing that first line in the explanation.
I agree.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
The only thing that could be added was about, we would be getting matching grant funds.
The town has they have received matching grant funds.
Yeah.
So they.
So
get
that it's like, we're
30,000.
not footing the whole bill, we're getting additional money to
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah,
So maybe we put a statement in that, matching funds, have been received.
Yeah.
Mhm, I like that.
Well, it says, funds are required. Doesn't say they've been received. does it?
Yeah.
no, Kathy's saying that they've been received.
Oh, they have been?
So would you like to add the town has received matching funds for this project?
I would.
Yes.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good addition.
Okay.
Easier to sell when people realize we're getting additional money on top of it.
That's true. That's true.
Gravy on the biscuit.
That's right.
Somebody else is like the idea too.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 1 on the town budget. Oh, did anybody have that?
Mm-mm.
That was not assigned either? I'm falling apart on my job.
Could have been Sylvester's.
Oh, it must have been Sylvester. He's not here to defend himself. so.
Number 2.
And it is.
I mean, and this is one of the, it's kind of really simple.
What did we write last year, Jeff? Because that again could be copy and paste.
Article 1. This article seeks town meeting acceptance of the town officers' annual report from all departments and boards/committees.
So that's,
Done.
what we
Yeah.
have isn't that much different, yeah.
This is pretty much what's in there.
Okay, cool.
You want to come back to 2 at the end, or you want to try to do it now?
So 2's the thing. So you and I guess you had me down for 2 as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is just the budget. Did we actually put an explanation last year, Jeffrey, in for 2?
Income explanation. This article seeks to fund the annual operating budgets for the various town departments.
Which is probably just as good. I mean,
Pretty
as I said to Chris, some of the language is in here.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of sat down with Terry and looked over previous reports, and in my thought, without going crazy, is you almost want to offer information that the town, maybe they don't read it, but we tried to talk about what it is we're doing,
Mhm.
and the grand totals, and it's just, they'll read it maybe they won't read it, but it offers a little more than simply, here's the numbers.
Over-communicate, my friend.
Yeah, so, and it tells her what our job is to do,
Yep.
which I think, that's kind of why that stuff is in there. It doesn't have to stay there, but that's kind of what I just went over with. The only person I talked to, I think you and I, Chris, shared an email notes about that.
Yep. So are you talking about what's in
Yeah.
the draft two warrant under
Yeah,
Article
because we-
FinCom overview.
We kind of threw in the town debt and interest, which, you know, sometimes that people wonder what that is. And you look down the bottom of that.
Oh,
we
that's,
talked
that's
about-
the overview. What I read was
Yeah.
the explanation we
Right.
had in there for Article 2,
Yeah,
which was just that one line.
but there wasn't, there was no overview, probably much of an overview last year.
Not before that, but I think it was.
And a little bit in
It
there.
was right, yeah, right at the front.
Yeah.
It was in, basically, the overview was in the committee letter.
I think I put in the $50,000 as a general rule of thumb on a per penny basis. Is that too much information for the public? I don't know.
It's great information. Leads to transparency. I
And
think.
then down at the bottom of, not the pages aren't numbered, but it talks about the numbers, which represent the $50,000 per penny, the black right here. The natural resources on 105 and stuff like that, so people can look at the area that impacts the budget on a per penny basis. And then the last part was to talk about the projected tax rate. You know, you include the budget, you include the I mean, not the CP, but the capital improvement, the school, and that, I thought more information would be better, but,
Well, I think you point out, you mentioned earlier about salaries, and this really points that out. I mean, look at the salaries increases. And that's pretty hefty.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're looking,
We're, yeah, I lost you too.
I'm looking at the bottom of that page,
school,
where it says,
which page?
DPW,
the FinCom report includes final
This page here.
execution of warrant.
Okay.
so you get almost $80,000 in salary wage increases in, natural resources. You have, only, not all salary in school, but another $80,000 in DPW. I mean,
Yeah.
not small dollars.
But that's not the only increase in salaries.
No, those are just the
Big ones.
big ones.
Right.
I mean, I think to be fair, we would probably wanna, wouldn't we wanna, sort
Probably.
of address that? I mean, cause obviously police fire is a big driver, right?
Yep.
When does this due again?
Oh,
Today, tonight?
we can talk, I mean, the explanations are probably due,
She'd like them by Friday.
you know, a couple days or so like that,
Yeah.
so.
I think if we're gonna point out, I mean, I just feel as though, to be fair, my personal opinion would be to almost, you know, I mean, I guess we could just do one line item, or to say the town side salary increase is X. The school town, cause you did the town, school
that's
increase is
true.
511. Do you know what I mean, and lump them all together, and just say the town's payroll and salary increase is going up by, you know, $500,000, and so
Yeah,
is the town.
this language here can all be, I
Yeah.
thought you and I would work on
I
it.
just haven't read it because
Yeah.
this is the first time I saw it.
Now, if you look at again, you talk about police and fire, just, again, for looking at, if you look at the thing, the police total,
Isn't,
you know, went up about, $40,000.
but if there's percentage.
It's already way up there in terms of money,
Yeah, but as a percentage, it's a lot less than, you know, police and fire are a lot less than some of the other departments.
that's correct, that's
So I
correct.
don't think you wanna focus, you know, the number's a big number for police and fire, so you're gonna have a larger increase, but as a percentage, it's a lot less than many of the other departments because of the turnover they have.
Yeah, the fire is, you know, basically, $30,000 on a $3.9 million budget.
Yeah. You know, one of the other big elements that we probably need to call up, if we're gonna go down this route, is the healthcare costs. Use it.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's attributable to.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think that, the question, I mean, I think we've already voted on the budget,
Right.
and we should define by explanation what this particular article represents, and maybe in the language we do something. Yeah, I think, that's why I tried to say in my letter, we gotta do something, or something has to be done, let's put it that way. We've already raised those things during our discussions with Rodney and Don, you know, questions of regionalization, questions of consolidation, that type of thing. Those aren't gonna be resolved here. And whether or not the finance committee wants to say something in print for the voters to consider, I mean, I alluded to it somewhat in my letter, but I didn't quite go that far.
Well, I mean, that's.
Maybe we
certainly-
should.
That's certainly the environment, I think, in which it would fit into, my opinion.
So we vote on the articles, we project the tax rate, if we can. We write to the voters, and somewhere in that mix, probably the right to the voters, I think,
That's what I
is
think.
where we
Yeah.
might say, as I think I said in my last line, this is your town.
Mhm.
I mean, so, but we're not at that letter yet, so I don't know how you wanna do that. Can you wanna take a little look at that language later?
Absolutely,
Are you guys okay if we do that, and then,
and move forward out. Yeah,
so that one line is, Jeff, say that again, so Kathy has it?
I have it to
Oh.
fund the annual operating budgets for the various town departments.
Yep.
Okay. So number 3,
I mean, you could go even one step further and add a column, right, next to all of the budgets, right, and just put in the salary increases, it's very easy to do, right, by department, and then tally it at the bottom, so somebody could actually go and look
Yeah.
it through. I mean, that's another way to skin that cat. I don't know if it's feasibly possible, you know, based on the column widths and stuff, but not, I think it's better, like, I think it's better to do it personally in our blurb than to, because this is sort of the selectmen's too, it's not just ours.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Jeff?
This article approves the capital improvement program CIP budget.
Huh? I mean, it is what, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we figured when we wrote them last year, it's like, keep it as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would ask on that is, all of the money that was approved comes from available funds.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything we should say as the finance committee? It's not just approving a 1.463 budget, or 23 budget, it's approving a budget that, where there's available funds. If you look at the Board of Selectmen explanation, I'm sorry. I threw some language in there already, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kinda like that.
Yeah.
That's
So-
kinda,
So, if,
I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know that the boat was coming out of the ambulance funds, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
where it says FinCom, Kathy?
Yep.
Could we say this article, comma, lowercase a, as recommended?
This article, as recommended,
And then, damn,
And then just the language that's in it? Or not?
are you going with, because you're saying it in your, explanation?
I was gonna use that as an explanation.
Oh, okay, you wanna use it again. Okay,
Is
this
it-
article approves the capital improvement program budget. All projects have been approved with the use of available funds.
I think we're scrapping that and just using the one that's in the draft too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you wanna use the whole, all the wording?
It's up to these guys, I mean, it's,
I think so.
Okay,
I think it's a pretty good description this time.
okay.
number 4,
Yeah, we'd be paid by available funds, period. That was mine. I wrote, this article appropriates $1,088,399 from Mashpee's share of the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018. This request is a bracket $46,611 or 4.1 decrease from the 2018 fiscal year budget of $1,135,010. 53 Mashpee students are currently enrolled. And I would need someone probably, Dawn or someone just to check the budget numbers for me.
I think that sounds fine. Well, the only thing,
What
I mean,
you're
do we know
missing-
what, so the projected decrease, the 46, is because there's less kids? Right.
that would be my guess, because
Yeah.
we had over 60 or
Yeah.
something at one point in
Yeah.
time.
I think that's.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're missing the
I'd-
14.9 million, right? That's something that's in that same article, isn't it?
What's that?
The 14.9 million for the new school?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd wanna
Yes.
check, the
No,
number of
the-
students.
that's the total budget for the school.
That's the school
Our,
budget.
our portion of it is
Yeah.
only 1 million.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'd wanna check the number of students. Because that's the same number of students that we had in our statement last year.
It was 53?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, good. The explanation's good if the numbers are right?
Mm-hmm. And last year represented a decrease of 4 students.
Yeah.
From the prior year. So, yeah, we wanna find out whether it's the same number or not.
And the Board of Selectmen, it's funny, have the same thing,
Right, yeah,
which is kind of weird. 53, a decrease of 4 students.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's-
no, that's right, I was looking at this statement, I wasn't looking at last year's.
Oh.
My fault.
Okay, so,
Yeah, it was 57 last year, okay, so there.
57 last year?
Yeah, so the 53 is the decrease.
Okay. Article
Too many
number,
things to look at.
you're okay with that, Kathy?
would you like to just put in front of 53, there are 53 Mashpee students?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 5.
Typo there, sorry. What is the OPEB irrevocable fund?
OPEB, you know what OPEB is, right?
Yeah,
Is-
well, I write that here.
Yeah.
And I said, is a fund that is set aside, my understanding is it's a fund set aside to support unfunded liabilities of the town for retiree benefits to be paid at a later date. These are needed funds so that those who retire from Mashpee County government can see their benefits.
Yeah, they're paid ongoing.
Right.
So they're paid now, too. Those that are retired are paid.
Right,
Yeah,
okay. We can fix it any way we want to, I just
Yeah.
give it a shot.
Now, we don't have that number, do we?
No.
This is the one where we were waiting for the ice and snow number first.
Yeah, so are you thinking what you'd like to know is, as of like today, what is our,
Well, amount that they
What's the-
anticipate putting
the-
away.
well, what is the amount that actually is owed, right? Because
Oh, 70 million.
$70 million. We could be transparent with that, too. Every town is, and government is today, but,
Yeah,
it may be
I mean,
interesting to put that out there.
it's not a bad idea
At pre- at
until you get the
present,
number that they're gonna put aside, which is probably gonna be $250,000.
Right.
And my guess is it's gonna be that low, a small number.
Yep.
Or we could say, at present, you know, the
A lot-
guesstimated,
The unfunded liability is
About-
$72 million.
right.
If everyone left today. Right?
To be paid after we are all long and gone. Yeah, I'm okay, I don't have the actual number, but I think we can, if it's important to put it in there,
It's unknown. The selectmen
It's
didn't vote on it
estimated
either.
by-
It's
to be-
estimated. I think it's about 200,000.
But you're gonna put
That's
it,
a guess.
no, the overall liability, if everybody were to go, is
Oh.
about 68 to 70 million.
Oh,
That's what we were told before. That would be a big number in there.
Because that actually is.
That's a good question. I wonder what we pay on an annual basis.
Well, that's, and where does it come out, right? Is that the line?
Do we have that anywhere?
Retirement expense, so I'm guessing that's the number, right? Which is 3,025,933.
I just tried to get it to sound like
Yep.
something somebody can understand.
Yeah.
I really look at that and I go, what does that even mean? Because people don't know what it means. So, Mr. Chairman?
I'm not sure I would say what is the open irrevocable fund.
Or,
I think it would just be,
The OPEB?
the explanation.
Yeah.
This fund sets aside to support unfunded liabilities for the town retirees to be paid at a later date.
The only benefit of saying irrevocable means it can't be used for anything else, that's all.
Right.
But,
it's fine,
It's-
scratch it.
that's one of those things that you really want to say something, because it's unknown, it's enormous, and it's probably never going to happen. So I don't know.
so this fund sets aside the unfunded liabilities of the town for retirees, blah, blah, blah. That's what you'd like to say?
Or this
Present.
fund sets aside funding to support,
Yeah, the unfunded liability.
or how about an unfunded, what is it, the
Yeah.
unfunded? An
I'll say this article sets aside
The-
funds
Or funds to support, I mean,
that are required to
what's that?
It's the,
pay benefits
Yes.
along that line.
To support the,
OPEB. All right, so that wasn't said before, right?
Yeah, I think, my personal opinion would be to support the unfunded liabilities of the
Okay.
town for
Yeah.
retirees.
Yes,
Spell it
Yeah.
out.
All right.
But you're saying you're
Yeah.
providing the funds for the unfunded, you know?
Yeah,
Liabilities of the town.
Well,
Yeah.
again, here's a question for you. It is funded. It's not fully funded. It's to provide funds for it's funded for what's a good word? It's not unfunded, but it's
Underfunded.
underfunded is a better word. There you go.
underfunded.
Underfunded.
That could be an interesting term.
That's a better word, don't you think?
Underfunded liabilities of the town retirees.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you guys that haven't been there, you probably know Phil, but we looked at a bunch of other towns, and we're in, as Rodney said, we're in the mix. A lot of towns in a
Right.
similar
Yeah.
situation. Some have done a better job than others, some have done nothing.
And what's interesting too is, so if I read correctly, right, the unemployment that we're paying, which is, line 70, I already take that back, retirement expense, 78.
Mm-hmm.
So we're designating, over $3 million
For this year.
or 19 for that expense. When do we start pulling money out of here to tap into that? You know what I mean? Like, I know we wouldn't do it now because it's only 250,000 in there or whatever.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know how that, do you take 10% out every year? I mean, is that even worth it?
Mm.
The other side, and I remember this part too, was by doing nothing, we could potentially be looked upon as sort of trying to just kick the can down the road. I think it's looked favorably upon the towns that have been caught, sort of,
Especially when it comes to the bond rating.
right.
Yeah, and beside, the law changed 2 years ago to require that we put this information in our financial reports, so that you no longer can not have it show up. So it shows up, so you're
Right.
right. If you're doing something, you
Yeah,
get
we're
a
trying.
little gold
Right.
star for doing something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kathy?
Yep, I've got it. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
This fund sets aside funds to support the underfunded liabilities of the town for retirees' benefits to be paid at a later date. These are needed funds so that those that have retired from the Mashpee town government can receive their benefits.
I would change that first fund to article.
This article
Yep.
sets.
Do we wanna leave the last sentence in?
You don't have to.
On this, on his?
Yeah. And I just wonder, because if anyone were to look and say, oh, well, they're only appropriating, what, 200,000, like, don't we need more money than that? Do you know what I mean? Cause it would appear as though that.
I guess I can't retire this year because there's not enough money there.
Right, that's what I'm
But
saying.
we need to explain it.
Yeah, no,
Someone has to stand
So
and
they
say,
can
well,
receive
really
the-
the whole $72 million.
right.
I mean, it says that
Isn't that
for
implied?
retiree benefits to be paid at a later date, that talks about,
It's implied,
is
right?
implied, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. My suggestion
Yeah,
would be
get
to
rid of that.
strike the last sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 6? We don't have one, okay. That had to be a Sylvester. The Capital Stabilization Fund is a fund that is looked at by those that audit the town and stuff like that. And there's been a, kind of a, as I understand it, a sort of a formula that they use to say that a town that wants a good bond rating and stuff like that has to have a certain percentage of money in their stabilization fund. I think it was around 10% or something like that.
Yep, I think you're right.
And so that's an important thing for the town to do because it enables them to maintain their bond rating, so.
Did we have this last year?
No, I don't think so. This is,
I think we did.
yeah, well, was it a much smaller amount they put in last year?
What I don't understand is why it's such a specific number, and I didn't ask that question before. You know, it's 1,176,537. Like, is a percentage of some
Yes.
number?
Yeah, it's,
And that's totally fine. I was just, maybe
Free
that's what
cash.
should be part of the,
It's a
Yeah, is
percentage
it-
of free cash?
Well, I don't
it's a percentage, I'm trying to remember now. The total amount of money, I think is, like a percentage of our expense, total expenses or something like that. I'm trying to remember.
or maybe it's a percentage of the total budget.
I think it's a percentage of what is available.
Let's see, capital stabilization.
I know it's a balancing thing. I know
Yeah.
that the money put away is supposed to be a certain, well,
So last year, it was $500,000.
that they put away
Yeah.
into it, rather.
Total, like even?
Mm-hmm.
And our comment was?
The FinCom comment, as the town's infrastructure ages, regular capital maintenance and improvement costs will arise. The creation and funding of a capital stabilization fund will position the town so it is better able to adequately address these expenditures as they occur. This article represents the beginning of that process. That's what I thought. It started
Right.
last year.
Yep.
So they put $500,000 in it to start it, and I don't know how they came up with the figure for this year.
Okay. It's a ton of money, but it's, I guess, it's for the right reason, but it impacts the taxes. I don't know why we didn't answer that question.
Well, I don't think it impacts the
No,
taxes.
because I believe it's coming out of free cash.
It comes for, funds for available for.
Yeah, it
appropriation,
comes out
right.
of funds available for
Okay.
appropriation.
Yeah.
And
And
I,
I
and I,
think-
Dawn did say something about how she arrived at that, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember either. And maybe it's not important.
No, but I think it's just the fact that this is, we're adding to the fund we established,
To defray
future,
future capital expense.
yep.
This article, sets aside,
1,176,000.
76,537 to defray future capital expense.
Yep.
I'm thinking of something else though, when I was talking about that. That's the money that they put aside in the capital improvement bucket.
Right.
Yep.
I was thinking of some other thing that we give a percentage on. Yeah, she did start that last year. So that
Yeah.
every year we don't have to start, because every year we were approving like $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
It was nearly enough money to give any capital improvements to any of the departments.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I mean, the free cash, I think I heard something that was close to $7 million.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why they jumped up 1.4.
Yeah.
This was 1.2. So we're kind of flush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this, okay, I got that now. This is for the capital improvement
Yeah.
project stuff, okay.
Yes.
7, we okay with that, Kathy?
Future capital expenses or expenditures?
Future capital expenditures.
Expense, period.
I mean, because
Expenditures.
capital
Expenditures.
expense, it could be, does that word sound, is it?
No, expenditures is the more
Is the more
appropriate.
appropriate word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Expenditures.
Yep.
That's all those,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So we're at number 7?
Yeah, that's fine. In the past, each of these items listed were an individual warrant article. In 2017, the Municipalities Modernization Act.
I want you to say that 3 times
It's
fast.
real fast. After, never mind. Allowed for these, and their expenditures to be listed in one article. So, yeah, these funds are expenditures set forth by each of the above departments. So there used to be separate articles, and I guess this law set them up that you can present them all in this one little package numbers. That's what I
Right.
tried to explain.
And they're all revolving.
They're all
accounts.
revolving
Yeah.
accounts, so,
It's just basically approving, revolving accounts under one article, which is allowed by the Municipality Modernization Act. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, okay?
No change?
Well, if you see any spelling or corrections or wording, please proofread well.
I think perhaps maybe we should put in there, like,
The word
in
revolving,
the past, each of these
revolving
revolving
accounts?
accounts were listed individually.
Didn't I say that in the beginning though? In the past, each of these items were listed.
You said
as individual
items.
warrants.
Yeah,
We're
but-
just adding, like, revolving.
Oh, got you, thank you.
8 was mine, I think, right? And I'm not sure about this, Kathy, in terms of, but I think I said, the Department of Revenue by legislative act, I don't know if that's the right term. I think it is.
Right.
Requires all towns to bring to the voters an annual budget for approval based on the expected expenditures, kind of redundant, for the PEG access and cable-related funds for the upcoming fiscal year. The total budget presented to voters may not exceed the current balance in the fund, which is $587,098.70. And I called to make sure I had the right, invariably I don't, the right account, which was listed in that paper that they gave. I don't know if you guys got it all, I think you did.
Do we need to tell people what PEG is?
We could. I'm not sure where I live myself, to be honest with you. But by the way, this is the, it's
Public?
public something, or, I forget. Public something group or something like that. Anyways, it's Schedule B2, sources and uses of available funds. The media government access is one of the funds that this comes from, which is where I got the number from. I don't know if I need a number in there. I can simply say that the total budget to voters may not exceed the current balance in the fund. Maybe that's all I need to do.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, take out, just end it at fund and then strike, which is 587,098.
I thought Dawn was gonna be here tonight. She thought, but I'm not sure what PEG means, but we probably should define it.
If Donna's listening, call in, please.
It's probably not a bad idea to maybe do PEG and then put,
Right,
brackets.
yes.
That'd be very nice.
Yeah. Right.
This guy probably knows who's doing the TV thing, I'm sure. Well, we can ask him.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So if we define PEG, everything else all right?
I think it does, yeah. And we'll strike out the last.
And strike out the last
Yeah.
number.
Public
Okay,
ed-
Ken?
Public education grant? We're guessing.
We guess.
I'm not sure it's education, but maybe, it could be.
It
Could
actually
be.
could be.
Public education,
Or whatever.
okay, put in the minutes that Darlene offered some,
Made something up.
Something like
Article 9, we'll get that definition, Kathy. No number 9, Article 9?
Yes.
Yes. Article 9 is, every year the town receives state funding for road improvements. This article allows the town to improve roads prior to receipt of those funds.
Do you want to add which would be 100% reimbursed, or is that important? I don't care either way.
I don't think so. I think we basically say it, we're basically authorizing the expenditure of the funds before we're giving it.
Okay,
Because
I'm fine with that.
We just won't have the number until after town meeting.
right,
But
Right.
we're authorizing the fact that really what this does is it just authorizes that we're gonna accept the funds from the state. That's
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
we've written
Yeah.
that in the past. And it's just, like it says, out of the 351 towns, it is just.
And I think this came up as a discussion question, or a question, that money is pretty much only reserved for projects, not for road maintenance.
That's what my understanding
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Plus, it actually can be used,
For, yeah, other,
you can build a DPW barn with it and
Right.
stuff like that, yeah.
okay, Kathy?
10?
We are at number 10.
This request continues the practice from the last 2 years to transfer $39,000 from revenue available to fund the final year of a 3-year study to understand the additional incremental nitrogen reductions in the bays. Approval is recommended to complete this study.
Sounds good, except the last line.
Okay.
We really haven't made, in our explanations,
Yeah.
yay or nay, right? That's all I
Okay.
would you guys agree with that?
yeah.
I mean, they see how we voted.
Exactly.
Now, they can understand that this is not an automobile thing. In the bay. Okay, never mind, that was bad.
Moving along.
Article 11.
That was me. This article looks to designate 19,000 of engineering cost to determine the channel from the main channel of Wacoit Bay to the Little River Channel. The funds are coming from the Waterways Improvement Fund, which is funded by mooring and boat excise tax fees.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, I think 12 is me too, yeah. 12, this yearly appropriation to the harbor master allows the department to upgrade equipment as they see fit during the year. The 25,000 is funded by the Waterways Improvement Fund, which comes from mooring and boat excise tax fees.
Kathy, okay with both?
Mooring and boat, they don't need to be capitalized, do they?
I don't think so.
No, I don't
No.
think so.
No.
12, excuse me, 13, was that another Sylvester one?
Yep.
Yep.
Basically, this is a self-funding operation. What did we have last year, Jeff?
Last year was, this article allows for the continuation of an entirely self-funded program within the Recreation Department for toddlers and preschool-aged children.
Done.
I must have wrote that last year.
Sounds pretty good.
I don't know.
That's after the rest of the committee
Yeah,
edited.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
Could you read that one more time?
Sure.
I was doing something else.
Yep.
This article allows.
This article allows for the continuation of an entirely self-funded program within the Recreation Department for toddlers and preschool-aged children.
Okay. We are at, what number are we?
14.
14. Who did 14? Did you, Jeff?
Yeah, I did. I was just finally finding where we had talked, where the PEG article was last year. 14. The Community Preservation Committee, CPC, has annual administrative and operating expenses that are funded through the CPA estimated revenues. This article establishes a budget and appropriates the funding for those expenses.
Well done.
Great. Number 15, I think that was mine, right? So the town has been able to provide low-interest loans to homeowners for maintenance and upgrading of septic systems through funds provided to the town from the Clean Water Trust to the town since 1998. The town of Mashpee, having no sewers, contains thousands of septic systems that have life expectancy and are expensive when repairs or upgrades are necessary. This program benefits the majority of residents who need this work done and has done so since 1998. Maybe a little long, but
My only question, the town of Mashpee having no sewers contains thousands of septic systems that have a life expectancy. Or
maybe limited
should it say
life.
that don't have a life, or no?
Limited.
Limited life expectancy?
Yeah,
That's
limited.
a good idea, yep, limited.
Am I going out on a limb by saying the town of Mashpee having no sewers? I mean, they have a couple of private,
We do have some,
they have some private systems. They're not,
right. I mean, they,
Not a sewer
they're
system.
not really sewer
Right.
systems, but maybe to say the town of Mashpee contains thousands of septic systems, don't put
Yeah.
on,
take that.
having
out.
no sewers?
Yeah.
And I say thousands because there's 10 to 14,000 people living here, so
Yeah, no, I think that's a legitimate.
is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
And do you think you need to have to say, who need this work and has been done since, you say that above, since 1998? So the last sentence, the program benefits the majority of residents who need this work done, period.
Period? Period? Okay. $16.
That was mine. This article will authorize the swap of 3.72 undeveloped acres of privately owned, in bracket, Lopez family, unbracket, land located at 127 Meeting House Road with an equivalent parcel of town undeveloped 3.72 acres known as the Lopez Conservation Land located at 103 Meeting House Road. This swap will eliminate the need for the current driveway easement and provides the town with land that directly abuts existing conservation land.
Reads good, I think.
I don't know if we need the,
I actually think having that statement in there about the tax rate on this particular one may be a good idea.
It might not be a bad
Okay.
idea.
Project.
It does, in fact, this is the town meeting, so it does impact taxes. Could impact taxes.
except it's
I don't know how it
swap.
could.
So you're taking the same
Right,
land,
right.
undeveloped land out, and you're putting it back.
Right, right, you're just swapping parcels, which has no net effect on the taxable.
It
The
could,
tax base.
I mean, you know, if you and I live next to each other, my lot may be less than your lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, we
Right.
never put,
I mean, I don't know if, like, you probably are correct
Mm-hmm.
that it won't
Yep.
affect it, but we just don't know.
Mm.
and we hardly ever make that comment in a town meeting, we always put it in a special.
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows what kind
All
of,
right, so then just take it out.
Strike it? Oh.
Yeah.
$17?
Yeah, I tried a 17, I really wasn't sure how to word it, so.
This is the one that I wanted to talk a little bit more about. And I actually went back and listened to the last broadcast and then talking about it. And I was a bit concerned about, with the proposal, the sort of the lack of structure or uncertainty, and really the power they had to make the decision.
You're talking about before.
No, now, with this proposal. And maybe I've misread it.
I think you're right,
Uh,
because from what I hear, or my perspective on it, I wasn't here for your meeting, but I did, have a quick conversation at the end of the last meeting. To me, it seems like it's not broken.
It's not what?
The zoning or the thing is not broken, the raise and replace. Like, a lot of stuff that was going on in Pompanesett and stuff like that, where they're knocking down houses and building houses, they're staying within the footprint, they're staying under the 27 feet height and so forth. This seems to be addressing an issue with a couple of homeowners that were unfortunately behind somebody who's now building a new home, and it's gonna ruin their view. That's just my
Yeah.
over-the-top sort of look at it, and like, I would have voted against it, if I was here. I'll vote against it at, town meeting when the vote comes up, because obviously I didn't vote on it. But that's just my
Well, you can
feeling.
talk it out and see.
You
Where we
know,
go.
I just didn't get the feeling, and, you know, I've gone back and read it, I listened to them,
Mhm.
and it seemed, you know, a very loose type of decision process now with this, and it seemed sort of the board, the zoning board, or whatever it was, would make sort of the decision based upon a case by case, and maybe I misread it. And yes, they talked about some of the guidelines, you know, the land and such things, and the setback, but,
Mhm.
you know, I just thought with what they're talking about, there was just sort of too much up to them to decide.
Well, I mean, it is unfortunately up to them as the
But
building board of
they should do
appeals.
that with certain guidelines that.
Well, they had no guidelines before, except a piece of the house has to stay. That was the only guideline.
Yeah,
And it wasn't defined, whether it was a wall, or a brick,
yeah,
or a chimney.
yeah.
And so they made decisions based on how they felt about the
Yeah.
proposal. What Mike was trying to say, I think, is that this makes it pretty clear. There will be no more requirement that you leave a wall. And you can do whatever you want, but you have to have a variance to go forward. And if you have
But
geographic,
Well,
that's the key right there, is the variance, right?
right,
In order to raise and replace. It's really not the brick of the thing. It's really the fact that if you're gonna do anything to your home, you're gonna have to get a variance from all of your
Right.
abutters. In this case, it sounds as though that there's only like maybe 3 abutters because the guy's on the wall. And he's probably not gonna get that variance, he's not gonna be able to go through the project. Where in the past, you know, the zoning board would come up and say, yeah, you're within all these specs, it seems fine, you know.
Well, the guy, the one house can't even meet the previous lever wall because they have to start 8 feet high because of the FEMA guidelines. So they can't, they would not be able to do anything under the old restriction at all.
Yeah.
So this allows for a variance to give people opportunities to do something. I understand what you're saying.
But, but is it being done for a house, or is it being done for the community?
As I have been told, and I'm just telling you what I've been told, it's being done because there are so many lots in the community that are 10,000, are small building lots. And when you look at the zoning guidelines about setbacks and that type of thing, you can't hardly build a reasonable house on a small lot like that without a variance. Period. The only ones that can build on 10,000 square foot would probably be a 40B on affordable housing. So this allows people to be able to build a more comfortable, a modern home that they want to have on a small lot. Whereas in the past, they had to leave a wall.
But they're still able to go under the old guidelines on the existing footprint.
They're still able to go on the old guidelines under the existing footprint,
As
which
long as you don't go out the existing
basically
footprint,
limits
you
their,
don't need a variance.
Well, I don't know how,
That's how it is now, I think.
what's that?
well, today,
You don't go out the
you can,
existing
if you
footprint,
build on
don't
your
need
existing footprint, I don't.
You don't
think
need a
you
variance as long as you leave something there. I mean, if you don't go outside the footprint, you don't do anything.
Right.
The problem that, according to what I heard, is that people are looking to have a little bit either bigger or more modern homes, which are difficult to put on the same small footprint. That's basically, and
But
they're using it as they're saying it's a tax benefit to the town, because you get a bigger home that's more valuable, more taxes, as compared to not having any growth because they can't do anything. I mean, that's
But-
how I've been,
But so, it's my understanding though, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that in today's world, without this, if you build on the existing footprint, you're fine, right? And you stay within your height requirements and stuff.
right.
If you wanna go outside that existing footprint, you would go and get a variance.
But you have to show hardship, right?
Yeah.
Well, my understanding is it's not just the existing footprint, but with your parameters of your property too, all these areas.
It's lot coverage,
Lot coverage,
setbacks,
Right.
and heights. Those are the basic three things.
right. And you can always counterlever a little bit if you need to.
I mean,
Not that I've done that.
we voted for it, but, so,
So what's your, I'm
No,
curious,
it's
I understand your
fluid.
concern, what is your
Yeah.
concern, Chris?
I don't think it's broken today. And I think to Phil's point, this all came about because of the situation in Pompanesett. And
I've heard it for longer than that, but, okay.
no, you would know, because you're more in the thing, I mean, but for whatever reason, it's sort of now has come to a head for whatever reason. And
But-
I think there's a minority of people who are, trying to push something through in order to effectively, stop somebody from doing a project that, if this never came about, I think he'd be fine. Again, that's my limited knowledge of it.
Yeah, I guess I would differ because
Okay.
I've heard differently, and I listened to Mike and John at our last meeting. And as the chairman of the zoning board of appeals and the town planner, Mike Mendoza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They want the town to be able to have growth. They believe, and I think Mike said it, that this should enable that to happen, not the other way, which would be the case if it's not broken. We wouldn't have to do this. They believe that it's broken, and this will help those that want to do something be able to do it. That's how I interpret it, anyways. I may be wrong too.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, which I thought was the case, that's why I felt it was something that should be supported.
But if someone's building on a piece of property in general, don't the abutters have the right to go to the zoning board and say, I have a problem with this, can we talk
Oh,
about
yeah,
it?
sure,
Yeah.
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 Oh, and they do,
Notice.
and they all do.
So-
I mean, in the paper, even if you go to
Right.
build a deck, you
Right.
gotta, file a
Right.
permit.
So, I don't know if it, I see what you're saying, it may, can't speak to the situation, but I can say that, it might make it easier for people to do it either way, right? But you still gotta get people to come to the town meeting, or come to the variance meeting, or whatever.
They can send in a letter.
Send in a letter, so people, I guess, people's voices aren't negated from this. So people
No,
still get
no,
to
that's
come
true.
and have an opinion, and say, we don't believe this, or we do
Yeah.
believe this.
So what's, just help me then again, what's the benefit of the change? What are we gonna gain from the what gets improved by doing this?
As I understand it, what gets improved is that the present requirement of having to leave something in the ground that's there before you can rebuild is being removed. So you're not restricted to that. That's the builder or the homeowner that wants to do something different is not restricted to having to keep a wall or something like that as they're going to build a new house. That seems to be what
You can.
is created. You can if you want to, of
Well,
course.
there's benefits to that, because if you knock down the whole house, you have to start over from new code day one. And that's a lot, if you're just adding, I think there's some different coding.
But I think that's why they said the caveat was to get a variance approved.
Right.
And the arguments that we've heard, and any of us that have done work on our own house would testify to the fact that trying to change something that's already in existence is a hell of a lot harder and more expensive than trying to go new.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, as I've been told by the zoning board and the town folks, they believe this is a benefit to the residents and to the town, because if residents do build new, they become more valuable, they become more beneficial to the tax rate. Now,
But we've been so the question is, are we gonna get more new build? We're doing raising and rebuilding all over town. So,
well, I
So-
think what they're saying is if we don't do something like that, we'll get less opportunities for people to build. That's the impression that I was given.
So who wrote the explanation on this one?
We
Nobody.
don't have one.
Oh, we
I was
don't.
supposed to write it, and I couldn't. I wasn't sure what to write.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Thank you. It's not unusual.
No, of course not. They're gonna keep getting bigger.
Exactly.
I don't know. So how do you summarize this?
Because it's a zoning button.
Can we raise a motion to vote again?
I guess we could have a motion to rescind the vote, is that not correct?
Yes, we'd have to rescind the vote. and
We
take
have to have a
new vote.
motion to rescind the vote, and then vote on the motion to rescind the vote, and then re-vote. I guess that's
Right.
how we would have to do
Yes.
it.
Yes.
I guess, and I'm open to do whatever you guys want
Yeah.
to do. Based on the people that I know that are supporting the town's growth and everything else, this was presented to me as a positive, in that it would enable residents to do more than they presently can do, without violating, it can't be a, anything that's, what do they call it here? It can't be more detrimental to the neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. So if that's the case, then I think it's a good thing. If it prevents people from building, which I don't believe it would, that would be a bad thing.
But, can they really not build today?
They can build today, as long as they stay within the structure and leave something in the ground that's there.
Yeah.
Which, according to the people that have talked to me, that has prohibited people from building. I don't have numbers. And I'm not sure I have facts.
When you say, because they have to leave something in the ground, they can't build.
No, because they have to do something in the ground, it becomes more difficult to get what they want. It limits their ability to get what they want. I mean, I don't know if that's factually true.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
not talking about it.
sometimes leaving something on the house also doesn't mean necessarily you have to go get a variance for it too. If you build it within the footprint, you're still using some of the existing
You leave
house.
something in the house, you go and build the same size home or same within the footprint, you don't have to do anything but get a building permit.
Right.
But what they've been saying is that they are finding that And again, it may be associated directly with the two in Papaneset. I don't think so, but it could be. That people are having difficulty in trying to do what they want because of the present restriction. I don't have numbers, like I said.
What gave me, I guess, a level of comfort in that conversation last time was the fact that you still have these setbacks and these restrictions.
That hasn't
So
changed.
that kind of controls really what someone can and can't do anywhere.
True.
But I will second a motion to rescind the vote if you make it.
There's another thing in here too, and I don't know if it was mentioned in the explanation, I wasn't here last week, about sufficient parking in the zoning. Did that come up at all?
I mean, I've only heard that in reference to the places over in Papaneset, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
no, I just, because it's in the article, and I wasn't sure if that had something to do with, like, is that changing? It just says, you know, a non-conforming existing prior to the raising of the existing structure, that there's adequate land area on the lot to provide sufficient parking. I mean, did you guys get the impression that if you were just gonna tear it down and stay to the existing footprint, now would there be an issue with parking?
Didn't come up.
It didn't come up?
Okay.
And I can see how if you turn a house around or turn it in a different direction, they would want to make sure that there was sufficient parking before they would permit it.
Yeah.
I've heard that at different places before, that they won't permit it in other areas where the parking is not.
Yeah, insufficient means what, 2 cars? I mean, I don't know, right? Yeah.
I think, yeah. I don't know.
If you could ask the Board of Appeals people a question, what would you ask them?
Me?
Yeah.
Why did they come up now?
Why now?
That would be my question.
And Phil, what'd be your question?
Because it's my understanding, limited understanding, that it came up because of the issue, and I don't think that was refuted. It came up
Well, the
because of the
zoning
issue.
board's right next door.
It came up because of the
Yeah, they
issue.
are, actually.
See if someone's available?
That's not a bad idea.
I'm gonna see if someone's available?
If they're right there, yeah.
Right. Bring it up.
Yeah, they're, yeah.
Well, you still need an explanation.
Huh?
You still need to develop an explanation.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Or don't you? That's a good
Yeah.
question. I mean, if it was your project, maybe, but, yeah, I guess.
I mean, the explanation that's there is exactly
Yeah, I
what
do.
they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
They're trying to
Yeah, sure.
clarify. Right now, I think I've heard through discussions that the zoning board has been making decisions without, there's no real, they have this leave something in the ground, but there's no real definition of what that means. So they've been trying to come up with on a case-by-case basis, whether is that enough to leave in the town or in the ground, or, I mean, they leave a brick, can they leave a wall, can they leave a?
But what happens if I leave 98%?
In the ground?
Yeah.
Then I wonder
No,
why
if- or
the
if I
hell you
leave-
want to change
If I
it?
leave 2% in the ground,
The looks I got. Mike's
He will?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
I mean, go ahead, say if you had 98% what?
well, it says that shall be defined as the voluntary removal of 100% of pre-existing structural materials and mechanical systems.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. Yep, right. It's all the wiring that bothers me.
Good, Phil.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming last week, but we're trying to put an explanation of the articles. We got to Article 17, and we have a couple questions we'd love to see if we can.
I'm here to help.
Okay.
Chris, why don't you start? You
Chris, question one.
weren't here, so.
I'm sorry, I don't think I know you.
Oh, Mike
Okay,
Mendoza.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Michael Mendoza,
Okay.
and I am your building commissioner.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, sir.
Chris Avis. Why did this come up now?
Because in the past, the zoning board of appeals was kind of being led along the way by the applicant's attorneys saying that they can be able to tear down and rebuild, when in reality, when you take a look at the verbiage in the bylaw clearly states that when you tear something down, completely down, it has to be built to today's code. So, everything that the board's been looking at basically has been non-conforming, so instead of being 40 feet off the front setback, you know, they're being 20, 30, putting back the house where it was, which is in violation of the zoning bylaws. Follow what I'm saying?
So you're saying, if a house.
They're presently
you know, let me
non-conforming,
in.
yeah.
So if a person raised their house but left the foundation, right, an existing footprint, no problem.
No problem, but they were tearing everything down to the ground, so you're basically dealing with a fresh slate.
Yep.
That according to the zoning bylaws, you have to meet today's code, meet setbacks, but they can't make it.
Right.
So now, not getting too legalese with you all, the deal is this, is you can't create a self-imposed hardship means I'm putting it back not in conformity because I tore it down and rebuilt. You see what I'm saying? You have to have something there. So then the discussion comes, well, what's that something? I mean, you did a good example talking about the foundation. Well, some people say, well, can it be just one wall? Now, if it's one wall, we're talking about a foot, 2 feet, 100 feet. I mean, what is he gonna leave there? It's a slippery slope, because what happens when during construction, that one wall you left falls in? Now is the whole thing in violation? You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
But basically, 99.999% of the tear downs rebuilders, we're wiping it off the face of Mashpee, and we want to build, but we want to put it back in violation of the zoning. Can't do that. So, the only other option you have for a raise and replace is that you have to go for a variance, but variances are tough, because when you go to court, a lot of them get overturned, because once again, it's a self-imposed hardship. Well, you had a house, and for no really good reason, you want to tear down, put a bigger house, but still in violation of zoning. That's not the reason for granting a variance. There's a reason why we get the setbacks. We're supposed to be, meeting zoning, but you're not. So it's a self-imposed hardship. So what do we do with this? Because basically, are we gonna stop construction in the community? No. So we have to come up with a mechanism. So the best mechanism I could come up with is giving the ability of the ZBA to grant a special permit, which allows them to put it back in that, if the board so deems, in that same footprint. But if they want to create a different nonconformity, like was using the example before, it's supposed to be 40 feet, but they were 20, but now they want to be 10 feet away. Well, that's a new nonconformity, which means they would also need a variance, because now they're trying to go beyond the original scope of the structure.
So it doesn't take the variances away.
It doesn't, but it leaves it in there in case the applicant wants to create a new, basically, violation. We're not letting the special permit saying it's a blanket, okay,
So if they're making it meet what was the original nonconformity, is just the special permit. If they're going beyond that,
The variance.
the variance.
They're gonna need a variance. So we had to get a mechanism, because right now, no, and basically, every community wants to have healthy housing stock. So this will create it, but right now, no.
But for the past 20 years, and we're all pointing to Pompanesett, right? They've gone,
Wherever.
where? They're down there and they're raising these cottages, right? And they're building bigger homes. And you're saying that they're not, quote, legal.
No, what I'm saying is the mechanism in which the ZBA granted that was not correct. Because you have to understand, I've met with the chair of the ZBA, we've met with town council, we've met with the town manager discussing this. And we all got to the same conclusion, according to the way the bylaw is, no, we shouldn't have been doing it that way. It was improper.
And this is, the question did come up about whether it's a very recent decision based on a very recent couple of requests, but I've heard this for some time.
Yes, 2 cases recently came up in the ZBA meeting where it was basically challenged, because what happened is, the applicant was saying, no, I don't need a variance. I'm saying, yes, you do, according to this section of the bylaw. And the neighbors actually got attorneys involved, and the attorneys are saying, your building commissioner is correct, they need variances. So for them to say, no, they don't, you're in error. And they said, we're gonna take this to court. That's how up the food chain it went.
Mhm.
So,
Where does it stand?
uh,
Because right now, this doesn't apply.
correct, where it stands right now is, the board's not, unless it meets the setbacks, you're not getting it.
But you've done it for other people.
It doesn't matter what town council, its understanding is you're correcting a wrong.
This is correcting it wrong. No, I'm saying that the current situation.
Well, the current situation, is like I was saying, is
Yeah,
if somebody comes in, they want to tear down and rebuild in the same footprint, the ZBA has already said they're hard pressed to grant that.
but in the past they did.
Right, and they say, we're not gonna go by, we're fixing,
Yeah.
we're doing it the right way. The correct interpretation of the bylaw is you are supposed to meet the zoning setbacks for that district.
Okay. One other quick question, if you don't mind.
No problem.
There's word in here about sufficient parking, and that's kind of vague.
In
Why
other
was
words-
that inserted? I'm curious.
Because we wanna make sure that there's no off-street parking. Because as we know, whether you wanna use Pompanesett as an example, or any neighborhood, if you've got an undersized lot and you wanna tear down and rebuild, we wanna make sure there's no parking in the street, you're parking on your property.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
And is sufficient determined by the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Because also think, once again, you all know the community better than I do. I'm on my 4th year here, so I know there's parts of this community I probably still haven't even seen yet. But we all know there are neighborhoods that, where the lots are that small where they're parking in the street. But if you wanna tear down, rebuild, you're gonna have to create parking on your property somehow.
Right.
That's a trade, it's always a trade, so you want something, all right, you gotta give us something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna ask you to do this, so.
And do you have guidelines for the parking in terms of like how many spaces that they have to,
That's already pre-existing in the town zoning bylaws.
A question is, I was given the impression that there's an awful lot of like undersized lots, perhaps.
That's correct.
And has there been a sizable number of residents that would like to do something and have chosen not to because they just can't seem to make it work, or?
I know one or two
Yeah, okay.
that they've pulled back, and they're waiting to see whether or not this bylaw actually goes to town meeting. Because it's important, and it's.
A lot of housing are older houses
Right.
too, so.
Another example to use, and the thing is, my world can get a little complicated because I'm not only enforcing your zoning bylaws, your general bylaws, but the Massachusetts State Building Code, and also FEMA, lucky me. So, so here's the deal about FEMA. If you're proposing to do work that's 50% or more of the assessed value of the house, that house has to be raised. We recently had a situation where a gentleman bought a house, all he wanted to do was remodel the kitchen. Well, the assessed value of the house was $60,000. That house now has to be up on stilts. But the lot is undersized. No way could it meet zoning. But he didn't foresee that he was gonna raise his house. I just wanted to redo my kitchen. But now, the federal government's telling me, I gotta raise the house. So what do you do with a person like that? You follow what I'm saying? This is why this bylaw is important. Because for him to be able to have his kitchen, he's gotta raise the house, and it says, fine, I gotta do that, but now I've got the issue of not meeting all the setbacks on top of this, so this will help those situations. And it goes to your statement about the small lots. If those lots are in the flood zones, oh yeah, whether it's an AE zone or a V zone, which is a velocity zone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the impact's going to be. That's where the bigger impact's gonna be, because what do you do with those people? And some of these houses, as you know, they've been handed down from family to family. Things need to get replaced. But once you get to that 50-foot mark, you get no choice. Up she goes.
So in the past then, and I don't mean this in a derogatory form at all,
Right.
but on the outside looking in the past, if you had friends on the zoning board, you could get anything approved, and under the old thing.
No, that's an incorrect way. Under the old way, basically it was the zoning board was misinterpreting that section of the bylaw.
I see. Okay.
And so I gave them the clarification. I said, no, this is the deal. This is what it says. And then we went from there to town council, who agreed with me, to the town manager. And then we all said, well, we gotta do something here. Because if not, technically, you kind of put a stop to a lot of construction, rebuilding. And once again, I'm going back to that issue about a healthy housing stock. Let's think about it. If you can't fix these out, what are you gonna do? Just let them there rot? You gotta do something. So this is an avenue that a citizen can go by. Because right now, as we know, you go off a short drive, there's a lot of small lots down there.
So what happens specifically if this passes with the guy at the end of that, where this came from?
Well, if this passes, then the individual will have the ability to come back before the zoning board of appeals, but go for a special permit, provided it's not creating any new nonconformities. In other words, creating another new variance they didn't have before. And then the board can take a look at it, evaluate it, and then they can be able to make their determination whether or not it's not more non-conforming as it was before.
Not more non-conforming than
Correct.
it was before.
Right.
Yeah, the one I heard, because of the FEMA, they had to start the house 8 feet higher than it was supposed to be started, but they're still restricted to the height restriction.
Yes.
So the house is actually smaller in terms of what they wanted to get, but they had no choice.
So, I'm just gonna ask a direct question, no offense.
No problem.
So this wasn't put forth to please somebody to keep someone from building or get someone to build?
No, sir, because I'm the one that wrote it up.
There you go.
I'll
So
take that
that's
responsibility.
my question, because I think people are thinking that. Was this written for a specific purpose? Did you have someone specifically in mind?
No.
Or is this really written for the benefit of the greater good of the town? I'll take your word for whatever it is.
No, on record and on television, I understand, it's for the greater good of the community.
Okay.
As I said, I want a healthy housing stock. You have a healthy housing stock, people are here. Housing stock goes down, people leave, other situations come into play, don't want that. So, found a problem, looked for a way to address it. The chair of the ZBA asked me to look into it, wrote up bylaw, gave it to the board, had them review it, kicked the tires, did little tweaks, and here we are.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Phil, anything?
All set?
Jeff?
I'm fine.
How would you explain this article in 10 words?
We're counting.
Or we'll go 15.
We'll go 15.
All right,
Write it down.
all right, you gotta think about this. All right, in 15 words. The ability to rebuild better what was there in the same spot.
The ability to
Rebuild.
raise and replace.
I was trying to save a letter or two, but go ahead.
That's okay.
To rebuild something that was better than was there before, basically is what you're saying.
Same spot.
But still having, you know,
Same
You're
zoning.
writing more letters.
yeah. But this one is gonna be real, this one is gonna be confusing and it's gonna be controversial because people are gonna think that someone's gonna be able to come in and do something next to me. And I
No,
think,
No, but
and what Chris just asked, I think that's the right thing to do is to have, maybe even in our response, whichever way we, how we say it, a statement that helps people understand, in 15 words, whatever number, but a very short amount of time, why this is good or bad. or why, why this is being put forth.
Why are we approving it or not approving it?
Because it's gonna be confusing for,
I mean, it's
Because if you-
confusing to us.
Right, because right now as it stands, if you have a small lot and you wanted to tear it down and rebuild, if you can't meet the zoning setbacks, it's not happening.
So perhaps something to the effect like the current bylaw doesn't address,
Progress.
well. it
No,
doesn't
I'm
address-
just, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, the current bylaw doesn't address
Existing non-conforming,
existing non-conforming building.
which are being torn down completely.
So.
Because because the bylaw does talk about existing non-conformities, you can add on to them, but nothing about, I'm leveling it off the property, I wanna build brand new, but I wanna build in the same setback violations.
So how does this sound? This article clarifies the zoning board of appeals authority to approve the raising and replacing of pre-existing non-conforming dwellings.
There we go. But whatever you wanna use the word authority or ability,
Okay.
you follow what I'm saying, authority could be almost self-serving in a way, you follow what I mean?
I'm fine with ability.
Does someone have, if zoning board denies somebody something, is that really the last go around or is court the next go around?
Court's the next go around.
Just curious.
And that's usually what happens. We've already had several cases that are in court.
Yeah.
That, and then don't forget, it's also where the abutter who doesn't like the fact you're rebuilding it in the
Yeah,
same non-conforming, they've gone to court. And we've had a few of those in the past few years.
And do people, I mean, would you deny someone because you're blocking somebody's view?
We don't have
No
that
view, right.
language in the zoning bylaws. I have heard it in other communities, but in Mashpee, we do not, but it does come up.
I think a view tax in New Hampshire, a view tax in Vermont, so,
They do.
Interesting.
yeah.
Jeffrey, will you read that one more time?
Sure. This article clarifies the zoning board of appeals' ability to approve the raising and replacing of pre-existing non-conforming dwellings.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you get a sense that at town meeting, which I'm sure, do you live in town?
No, I don't. So
I'm assuming you might be asked to attend.
I will be in
In the
attendance.
back corner where usually the non.
Wherever they put me, that's where I'll be. But, I won't be
Non-conforming area.
available. Yeah.
Do you think that's gonna, have you heard, I mean, you're sort of got your ear to the ground, like, what's your feeling?
My feeling is, it is a conversation piece, because, some people really don't understand it fully, what does that mean to them?
Mhm.
And the best thing I can say is what that means is if your existing home doesn't meet current zoning and you have the financial ability to rebuild it, tear it down and rebuild it, but you wanna do it in the same footprint, this bylaw will give the ZBA the ability to get you there, cause right now, you tear that down to the ground, you have to meet today's setbacks, and a lot of these lots are not there.
See, my concern is not necessarily with the builder, but with the people who live on either side and across the street and behind them.
But they still get notifications to show up at the hearing to voice their concerns.
Right.
So they're not like they're closed out, because under 40A, Mass General Law, you still have to notify a butters within
understand.
300 feet. So that'll never disappear. No one's losing their rights. All I'm doing is giving another avenue for the issue to be addressed. Because right now, if you do it straight by the variance, it's a self-imposed hardship. That's very tough.
You're not gonna get zero lot line issues and stuff like that, but I know what you're saying.
Okay.
No, because then that becomes a
additional violation.
Yeah, which is a variance, which is like, really, you know, so, pardon the pun, but I'm gonna sit there, eat the popcorn, and watch that show. Because you're gonna have to be able to explain why you wanna be closer, you know what? And that's what the deal is.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was very helpful.
Yeah.
No problem.
Right.
Thank you, next door.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mike. Sorry to
No problem.
Thanks.
It was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Thanks, Mike.
Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Ladies?
Thank you very much.
I think they
All
clarified.
right, take, oh, yeah, obstacle.
Watch your step.
Yeah, yeah, all right. Gotta get the building department in here, you know?
Well, that was helpful.
I mean, I think it still leaves the specter of a little shakiness, but,
It took two explanations for me to understand it a little bit better than after last week, so.
well, I mean, I think what they're doing is correcting a wrong,
Well, or
or
it's
a loosely defined way to take care of things.
And sometimes that's not progress either.
No,
Right.
no.
I mean.
I mean, a couple things,
Not
you want the
everything-
healthy housing
The
stock,
square block doesn't always fit into the round, you know what I mean, like, there's always.
it does if you work hard enough at it.
But, no, and we've got Article 18 written, so that's good.
Well, do we want to do any further discussion about motion to rescind, or are we okay with that?
We, personally, I mean, I would support, like Jeff said, if you want to do that. I'm probably, I mean, my personal opinion right now is I don't have opinion on the article. I will at town meeting. I'll vote at town meeting
I'm not likely to change my
with everybody
mind.
else.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. You know, I still believe that it's very focused on the, you know, the building lot and not protecting those around. So-
Well, I hear what you're saying, but the thing to recognize is the setbacks will still apply.
Yeah,
It would be no different than the present non-conforming situation, so it won't be any worse for the neighbors. In fact, if anything,
Yeah.
one would think it would be better because the house would be nicer, but,
yeah,
I mean, that's,
I hear that.
yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind reading the article back to us, or the explanation?
Sir.
And we can just,
This article clarifies the zoning board of appeals' ability to approve the raising and replacing of pre-existing non-conforming dwellings.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with that.
awesome.
Works for me.
18.
18.
On this one,
I did that one, I think.
the selectmen voted against this one.
And I'm against
it. They voted-
And the discussion was, this one with 19.
Right.
They
right.
voted 419 against this one.
And they voted against this one, they voted to support 19.
Right.
Yep.
And part of the philosophy was that, you know, if they approved this one, they would have to go back again at the board meeting at the town meeting in October to complete the process. Whereas if they approved 19, that's something that, you know, if it passes, and then they could act upon it more quickly.
Oh, I see.
And if both of them pass?
No, if just not, you know,
Well, what happens if
the
both of them
selectmen
pass?
voted down 18
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and voted to support 19.
right. But what if both of them pass at town meeting? Then what do they do?
Well, I think then, you know, I think, you know, the town, if they vote to 19, then they could, you know, the applicants could, you know, try and sell the property. And then if they sold it, then based upon, I think, a 2/3 majority at the meeting, the town could then negotiate with them to remove the deed restriction.
And regardless of what the town does, according to our attorney is non-binding.
Right. You
Yeah.
can't,
Right.
it really doesn't affect it.
Right, but the board could
They
take the
could.
advice of the town
They could,
and release it.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
Of course, on
Anything's
this-
possible.
And I don't know if it came up, I was really, I did a little research on this myself. Fair market value in the eyes of the petitioners, is $335.
yeah, it's about 330 plus,
Yeah,
right?
give or take.
No, the fair market or what they were talking, the
There's a
330 number was the
Right.
formula-driven number. They believe
Right.
fair market is something above that.
So, in my opinion, fair market is what somebody will pay for.
Right. And
Okay.
they've
Right,
had
and-
two,
and-
they've had two offers for more than the
330.
Yeah.
Right.
330.
But here's the difference. It's still fair market value when somebody reaches in their pocket to write the check.
Sure.
So I would argue, and what they're saying is, it's worth 340 or whatever the number is, if it didn't have the restriction.
Right.
Well, it does. So my thing is, it's probably worth 250. Okay? Because somebody will probably buy it at 250 with the restriction.
Yep.
But they haven't gotten, within 3 years, they haven't gotten anybody that meets that requirement.
Or anyone
To
willing to
make
buy it
offers.
with a restriction.
But that's the,
But they haven't offered it at
difference.
that level either.
They're not going to market, okay, at 210 or 225. They're going to market at 3, and they're getting offers for 330 if the restriction is lifted. My argument is, if you go back to 10 years, and I don't know the time frame and stuff like that,
About right.
that house was granted to the petitioner at, let's say, $100,000 or $70,000. That house was probably at the time worth $250,000, $250,000, okay, if it was unrestricted and stuff like that. I think, and again, in my humble opinion, so they're trying to make a home run. Because the house is worth, with the restriction, probably, if you look at the current trend, and let's say market increased 10%, or even more than that, 100,000, that house is worth, or let's say it went up 50%, is worth 200,000 with the restriction. If somebody bought that house at 100,000 and was gonna sell it, and it didn't have a restriction, you know what I mean? They can take the 300,000, because I think it's fair, because they knew what they were getting, these people knew what they were getting into. I would wonder if, in fact, that house went on the market for 225, would it sell
With the restriction.
with the restriction? I would argue that it would. And that then stays as it was written to stay.
Why does the housing people take it back then? Why don't they take it back and
Because
try to sell it?
I believe that the petitioners want what they consider fair market value, which in their opinion is
No,
$330.
what they're saying is they have, their agreement says that,
They can make $100,000.
their agreement says they could get so much of a growth per year, and the number works out to be 330.
Right.
So it's in their formula how they can.
Yeah,
But no one's stepping up.
people
Well, what I'm
have
saying-
stepped up.
But they want the restriction lifted. That's when somebody will buy the house for
Yeah.
that 330. What I'm saying is, if that house went on the market for 225, clearly stating that there's restriction in it, I would venture to say that it's gonna sell.
Yeah.
Now, am I,
If it.
correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm not right on this, that's why I
But-
threw this
but
argument
it's a
out.
moderate income house, and there are no moderate income applicants at this time, and there haven't been for X number of years.
At the price that they're,
No, there's nobody in that, applying for that program,
Right.
period.
applying for the program.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
So-
nobody qualifying for that program looking for housing,
Yeah.
period.
there were 6 homes that were moderate income, and 3 of them have come off due to foreclosure.
Right. I remember hearing that.
And we were told that there was nobody, I thought there was
Yeah.
nobody that went to buy the house, but there's
No,
nobody
there's
in the
nobody,
program.
yeah, there's nobody,
I've heard that
Well-
that program doesn't is not working anywhere.
Right.
That's what they
I
were
heard the
saying.
program's not working either, but I wasn't sure if the formula to come up with a moderate income based on the sale price, it was 330 or whatever the number is, worked. But if the number was 225, then does somebody fit into the moderate income program? Because that's the driver, is
Yeah,
the
but,
cost
but
of
you
the
can't
house.
go back. You can't, what they signed X number of years ago said that, yes, you will be able to realize this value in the house. Yeah,
They put
they-
value to the house.
I'm sorry?
They put value to the house.
Yeah, the problem is that the program isn't working the same way it did 10-plus years ago.
Well,
So-
answer me this question. Let's say the market crashed.
Yeah.
And she paid, and again, I don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
She paid 100 grand. The house is worth, after 10 years, 100 grand,
Yeah,
and she wants out. Who gives her the $100,000 based on the program for the increase?
but, this is probably true of any, moderate, or affordable housing, that we have.
I mean, she was entitled to get an increase based on the moderate if she could sell the house.
Yes. Yeah,
So, and that's the problem, because she can't sell the house because there's nobody in that moderate program.
Yep.
So that essentially, regardless of the pros and cons, they can't sell the house within the restriction, because there's
Yeah.
nobody in that program that would even.
Correct.
That's,
Yeah.
that's one problem,
yes,
or the problem, I guess.
yeah.
But
Right,
is the
and then-
formula of the moderate buyer based on the price of the house?
I don't know,
I'm not sure to answer that question.
I don't know.
No one from the housing authority came forward
Yeah.
to talk,
Because they're
to talk to
against it.
this.
Yeah.
They've not come here.
No, I know that.
They've not spoken to this group about it.
Yeah. Which
So
is not
they're
good.
against it. Where are they?
No, I don't know if, are they, were they the ones, I think it was the.
Hack?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
I
the
thought
Housing
it
Assistance
was-
Corporation?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They're supposedly, I think it was the HAC, the Housing Assistance Corporation, they pretty much said the same thing. There is nobody in that program
Yeah.
anymore. And I don't know why necessarily,
Right.
honestly, but for some reason, they either fall in the 65% or
Right.
not. And I don't exactly understand why, but I guess we have been told there is nobody in the program. So they can't sell it under that restriction
Right.
because there's no one to buy it.
Yeah.
And when I, I get your point, but I'm also thinking a couple of things. If you look at the numbers, take emotion out of it.
Oh,
right? And
well, you obviously have no emotion towards it.
but people have emotions, right?
Yeah.
So think about it for a second. These people want to get out of their situation. That she started out as a single mom. She's looking into the numbers, and as the years gone on, they put money into it, numbers into it. Things moved on. They want to move, like a lot of people might do.
Sure.
So she's going by a formula that was in the group that they were given, that what they can get out of the house. Plus, anything that comes back from that goes back to the town.
No,
So
totally.
they've had offers of up to, what, 260, 255? That's,
The
I'm sorry,
363.
I'm sorry,
363 or
355.
Yeah, no,
That's
360s.
$30,000 coming back to the town. That's a
Well,
pretty
if-
good little chunk of change. Plus,
If we can get this thing removed.
if it's removed, then they can sell it, right? Plus, you get the tax revenue from it, from the increase, from the renewal. So I think there's a lot of pluses to it myself. Not dollars wise. I think there's a lot of pluses to it.
If in fact there is not somebody who can qualify to buy that house, I'm all in. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm in.
that's my understanding, is there's nobody qualified to buy it.
Right. But again, my question is, are they qualified at the 365, or would somebody qualify at 225? And I get the formula, I
Yeah.
totally get it. What I kept hearing in the thing was fair market value, and fair market value to me has to include the restriction.
I think-
It has to include the restriction.
I think, I don't know, I mean, we've been told by everybody that there's no one in the program. I don't know how to find out whether that's
Yeah.
a valid statement or not. But if there's no one in the program, period, then it wouldn't make any difference whether it was 300 or 220, because there's no one to buy it, period.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm 100% in favor of that, and then the restrictions should be lifted, if that's the case.
And I also we all know that you make your bed, you lie in it.
Right.
Things change, and, you know,
Yeah, I mean, if it was a bad written, poorly written, which it sounds like, program to begin with, yeah.
that's what it appears to be, I guess.
That's my interpretation of it as well.
And the town doesn't want to take it on, from what I can see, as affordable housing.
I'm not sure that the town does
Yeah.
want to do that, and
And I'm not sure if
I'm not sure the town wants to pay the
people should be
money.
paying
Right.
$100,000 to get it too, yeah, personally.
Yeah.
so anyways,
Does anybody have, a concern if I was to reach out to, I guess it'd be Hack, right? To figure out if, the question I would ask, I guess it's Botsford?
yeah, Leela Botsford.
Leela? What, we're told that there's no, people who qualify for this program. Is the program based off of the sale price of the house, or is it just no one can do this program? Would that be agreeable to everybody, just to get clarification?
Yeah, I think it's, we've been told, but we haven't been, it's been anecdotal conversation. I've not seen anything in writing or from anybody officially, but her name was mentioned as one of the ones that confirmed that there wasn't anybody
Yeah.
in conversation.
So I'll send a quick note out to her, copying everybody here.
The thing that I did write simply says, petition article requests the town acting board of selectmen to purchase the 80% low-income restriction on property located at 37 Center Street, using general funds, Community Preservation Act funds, and/or other sources of revenue. The purchase would in effect enable the property to be added to the affordable housing inventory of the town, which is presently woefully under state-suggested percentages, and remove it from the 80% low-income restriction category, which per historic figures is not a successful program.
That's number
18.
18.
Yeah, so did you guys vote on that?
We did.
Yeah.
You voted for it?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
But, you know, in that sense,
I think essentially at the time, we discussed the fact that there didn't appear to be anybody who would even be applicable under the program. Therefore, no matter what they price the house at, they're not gonna be able to sell it. They're trying, they put money into the house, and they're willing at the time to sell it and reimburse the town the percent, I think it was part of the contract.
Yeah.
And we said, well, let the voters decide.
So you guys voted to basically have the town pay $100,000, right? Which
No,
is
this was
per-
18.
per-
We voted for the town to,
Right. Because you're saying in 18, the explanation, you're saying the petitioner will request the board of selectmen to purchase,
yeah, we did say, yeah,
the low income restriction on the property, right?
right.
And you would be using CPA, other sources, general funds, blah, blah, blah. And then we would own, and I guess then the affordable housing would own the house.
Correct.
Okay.
you know, now that we know how the Board of Selectmen voted and finally decided, do we want to reconsider number 18?
See, I don't think that the town people should be unput to pay for the house, my personal opinion.
I guess I'll entertain a motion to rescind the motion, rescind the vote if you want.
Well, it's, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just me.
No, I'm just thinking, you know,
I think-
this would have been helpful to know how they were going to vote before, you know, it's nice to have some opinion. I didn't get any opinion.
Do you, Kathy?
I'm not sure how they're gonna vote.
Color on why they voted no? Or do you remember? I mean, to put you in a spot.
I know, you're putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
The thing is, too, with CPA, you can't really,
I'm not sure CPA money
direct
could
the
be used for that.
CPA to pay for it, you know, you need
Right.
to have an application and go through that
Mhm.
whole process.
Right. And it's really not $100,000, right? We would be paying like $300,000, right?
You have a sales price.
Yeah. If in fact it's 330, right, we'd be paying 300 and we would be getting back 34,000 or whatever it is.
And a house.
I'm not in favor of that. Just,
Do you wanna rescind your?
Well, I gotta be honest, I mean, Chris, I think for me, there was a lack of direction on which way the town wanted this to go.
yeah.
So, let the people decide. Let the voters decide what they want. So, that said, now that I know that the selectmen want, they look like they're more in favor of number 19 than number 18, I'm open for going back and revoting that.
I think 19, we should get rid of this moderate housing restriction, because obviously it doesn't work. I mean, are there any others that this pertains to, or is this the only restriction, moderate restriction?
There's
that
3
we know
others in
of?
town.
There's 3 of 'em.
Oh, there's 3 others.
They're all on Center Street.
Yeah, I heard,
Which is,
yeah. And isn't there more talk of them building more back there?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, what would you like to do?
I'd like to make, well, I can't, because you guys voted on it, not me.
Oh, you can always make a motion.
I make a motion to rescind the vote for Article 18.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll take a vote. Phil?
yes,
Jeff?
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't vote last time, and I'm gonna recuse myself.
Oh, you can still vote. I mean, you're
Oh,
at the
you
meeting
can
now.
vote, it's a new thing, yep.
But I've been embroiled in that same issue
Oh,
through the zoning with my husband, so I think I'll recuse myself.
You abstain?
you
Okay.
abstain. And I'll
Chris?
say yes.
4
0-2.
to abstain.
Mhm.
Okay?
What's the vote?
So that's the vote
For-
to rescind the
4
vote.
to rescind the previous vote.
Now we can reconsider and have a new motion.
Correct.
consider a
Right.
motion to,
You go right ahead. You go right ahead.
I propose a motion to
To approve the article.
to approve Article 18.
No. No, you make a motion not to
Not to approve.
not to recommend.
Yeah, not
You're making a
Maybe I
motion not
should-
to approve Article 18 as
Yes,
written,
thank you.
Not to recommend.
not to
Sometime.
recommend. Right.
Or do we have a second?
Second.
Jeffrey, talk to us.
I'm just. At the moment, I don't see a reason to change my vote.
Mhm.
All right. I'm not sure where the dollar figure is coming from. Because there's nothing in the article that says a dollar figure.
Right.
You can always vote to take no position on it, too.
Yeah, I mean, the article says to purchase an 80% low-income restriction on a real property, we don't have a solid figure of what that amount is.
Right.
Yep.
So, with that being said, wouldn't you vote against it without knowing the number?
Or take no position. I mean, essentially.
And the other thing is, however anybody votes, the board of selectmen are gonna do whatever the heck they want anyways.
Well,
All right.
that,
You know?
but according to town council, they don't even have the power to do anything.
Right.
So it's, again, we talk about a non-binding vote.
But they
Yeah.
can lift the moderate restriction if
On-
they want to.
That's 19.
On 19, yes,
Yeah.
on 19.
This one is
This
talking
one-
about buying that.
Right,
house.
right.
And putting
So-
it into
Right.
affordable housing.
Right, that's a whole different thing.
So
I think.
what I'm saying is, if you lift the restriction, let's say we can actually lift the restriction, but let's say hypothetically we could. Now these people can sell the house, and basically what we lose is 34 grand if it's sold for 334,
Either way.
or whatever the
It's
number
not
is.
binding any, they don't have to do anything.
Right.
Have to do what happens, so.
Right. That's how I'm looking at this,
Yeah.
but I don't know, I mean, I don't know if I'm right.
I guess, at the end of the day, what we're supposed to look at what's the best thing for the town,
Financially.
financially. And that includes how our residents are treated and everything else, so it's kind of a catch-22.
It is.
And you make a good point. I mean, there are, you know, this one doesn't need numbers in it, number 19.
No.
Number 18, numbers make much more sense.
Yeah.
To have figures in place.
Right.
Okay.
So the motion is to not
Recommend.
Not recommend.
support or not recommend Article 18. That was seconded by Chris.
It will.
Any further discussion? Bill?
Yes.
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 5-0-1, right? And Article 19, which we don't have a,
Well, I think we need to.
We do it.
Explanation.
I have an explanation.
oh, did you do that?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
The petition article seeks to have the moderate housing restriction lifted.
Well, I think we need to revisit the explanation for 18.
Oh.
Based on
Without
our
a
vote.
doubt.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the same, I mean, it's the same whether we vote yes or no, the articles,
it's true.
the
That's true.
explanation's the same.
I would agree with that.
We still have a need for affordable housing, whether we vote for that one or not.
Yeah, good point.
But I'm willing to change it.
No, because it's an explanation of the article, not of our vote.
That's right.
Okay.
19?
But we're gonna need to be prepared to explain our vote at the meeting.
And I think it's an easy one because we don't know what the purchase price, what's the financial impact to the voters?
Right.
There's no numbers.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Want to read 19 again?
Yes. It's short and sweet. This petition article seeks to lift the moderate housing restriction. No, this article seeks to have the moderate housing restriction lifted.
Townwide? Or should it,
It's just this property.
Just this property.
Yeah, it's only on the 37 Center Street property.
oh, it's only on 37?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would be more in favor of lifting them all.
Is it, I'm just trying to figure out.
Will you
how-
say that at the meeting? Somebody bring that up.
Yeah.
Well, what's good for the goose should be good for the
I
gander.
agree.
I mean, if
Well,
there's somebody up
hopefully-
there, it's the same spot.
Hopefully this gets lifted.
Yeah, and as far as, what I see is the petitioner is only concerned about their property at this point. It's like, somebody else should file a petition for the other
Themselves.
two.
Good point. Yep,
Right,
yep, good
right.
point. Yeah, that's a good point. So the petition article seeks to have the moderate housing restriction lifted at 37 Center Street.
Yeah, I would add that to the statement.
Did you vote to approve that one?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that we've done it. And Chris, we gotta talk about the language in 2.
So the language in 2, and
The
you
low
want
end.
to look at your letter?
I'd like some feedback on it, I mean, if you don't mind.
All right, the first feedback in your statement on Article 2, it should be omnibus, not omnibus.
Yeah, I already got that.
Okay.
It's awesome.
You know what I would almost say? Well,
I'll be a slide.
Yes, Gav. Tell us.
big mouth, yeah. Third paragraph, the warrant, 7 articles for the special, and then you have 19, and I would almost say 17 articles with 2 petition articles.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
Okay.
17 articles.
If you end up with 2,
Petitioner from
Yep, people.
petitioners,
Yep.
people. Yep.
And you only need 10 signatures to bring forth a petition. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
So if you ever have a petition ever to bring, you need 10 signatures to get it on town meeting. Just putting that out there.
Did not know that. The
I'm
Richardson
basically gonna
Trust
say that
Fund.
all those articles
There you go.
combined,
Mm-hmm.
are there to support a budget request of 59, whatever.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say. The ones I suggested worthy of mention are just, I threw the budget, even though, yeah,
Yeah.
ominous, wow, that exceeds 3%, because I think it's important that town knows, or the visitors, the residents know that that's a big percentage.
Right.
And that they can associate that with their personal lives, their personal wages, their personal jobs, and everything else.
So it should probably say exceeds 3% overall from last fiscal year?
Yes.
Is this the place to mention salary?
Yes.
This right here?
Well, no, you could,
Or is that just all?
you could say a budget that exceeds 3% overall from last fiscal year, primarily due to salaries or something like that, I don't know.
Well, so maybe what we could say is exceeds, so if we did the actual increase year over year, and let's say it's 1.2 million. Of that 1.2 million, 511 comes from school salary wage line, and 500 comes from the municipal salary line, something along those lines.
I'd almost rather put it in a percentage. How much of a percentage increase in the school? How much of a percentage increase of the rest of the town?
Yeah, so I mean, what you're saying is, then you're lumping all the budgets, the entire budget together.
No, I'm saying
Oh.
your school salary increased by X percent.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of the town's budget increased by X
Percent.
percent. Because if you just look at the numbers, it doesn't really accurately reflect the amount of.
Since you're
pay.
saying 3% overall from last
Right.
year, so if you say, yeah, I get you.
It's like when we were talking about the fire and the police, it's like if you look at the dollar increase, it's one thing, but if you actually look at as a percentage increase, it's something totally different.
Yep. So then basically, I guess what you could say is then the percentage of increase from the school salary line last year, right? And the town side salary increase, and whatever those percentages are, 2.8% or whatever,
Yeah.
then that kind of correlates along the line somewhat with the 3%
Right.
year over year. Okay, good idea.
So after the 3%, would you put in like parentheses, school, salary? We can write it out longhand, but I was just wondering how you want to do it.
I just
3% from
make
last-
it a separate sentence, say, of this
Increase.
increase.
The school
Right.
and the town
All right,
salaries are X and X.
Yeah.
so what I'm saying, that the overall budget, let's say exceeds 3%, or up 3%, however you want to put it. Basically, then I would say the same thing about the school, and the same thing about the town.
Yeah.
Same general,
Yes.
okay.
But noting that it's the salary lines, not
Just
the,
salary, just salary.
just not the total budget, the
Right,
salary.
Just the salary.
Yeah. Yep.
I threw in Article 7, recognition of Mashpee American Revolutionary War veterans. I think it's important in today's environment to recognize the military. I mentioned, we get Article 3, the capital improvement budget, because I think it's important to recognize that's a lot of money.
I think you may want to add there the line about it is all funded. Not coming
It's
out of.
fully funded
Yeah,
with available funds.
We're funded by.
Available funds.
Available funds.
Yeah.
4, that should be, no, I'd take that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Take
4 is
4 out.
really, that's just the entire,
Mike,
I mean, it's,
that's not building it.
capital improvement program, CIP.
so Article 17, raise and replace a new definition for non-conforming building lots, which I guess that's gonna be a discussion topic, so I might as well leave it in there.
Yeah.
That lists 1, 2, 3, 4 articles. Is there any others you think we should add, or is that enough? Is there anything else that jumps out at you?
Most of the other ones are just like boilerplate,
Yeah,
right?
most of them.
I mean, unless you want to talk about the the restriction, 19 and 18.
Well, the only thing I don't like about, well, 19 and 18, I think it's non-binding, so I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
It's in litigation.
Yeah, it is in.
Yeah.
Question is, does litigation go away, you know, once it gets approved at the meeting, so,
I don't know.
you know.
Yeah, this is, I just said the cost of running a town continues to rise while management continues to make efforts to find ways to offset increases. That's to me is a vote of confidence for management, whether it's valid or not, I don't know. Our funds available for appropriation and other available funds play a major role in dampening, maybe that's the wrong term, escalating costs, so that a reasonable tax rate can be presented.
Minimizing escalating costs?
Huh?
Instead of dampening, he's
Minimize.
saying
Minimizing.
minimizing.
I'd like to, I think minimizing, I think it's not really doing a good job of reducing our taxes. I think it has a slight impact on it. That's what I would say, dampening, pick another word, but the bottom line is we're still getting a substantial increase even though we're using available funds.
And those available funds were
And we're-
available
and
funds
we're-
from us,
Yes.
right?
So, okay, I'll change that though. This year, so much was used from various sources to bring the preliminary tax rate down by some 13 cents. That's,
No sum.
what I did, as I think I said earlier, I just took all the, like say one was up
Previous
$500,000. I did 10 times 50, 10 cents. That's how I did it. Very rudimentary.
This year relates to 18 fiscal year or 19 fiscal year?
This is
18.
the
Well,
19.
this is 19.
But this year, XXX, that's that's the.
18.
That's the 18 fiscal year.
So 2018, X
Yeah.
amount of dollars was used from various sources to bring the preliminary
I'm
tax
saying
rate
this
down.
year, just means 2019, because we're
All right,
taking
so
money
I think
from,
that then you
taking
would-
money from available funds that we
Yeah.
got based on the previous year and using it to impact the 2019 budget, that's what I'm saying.
I think it needs to just
Yeah.
clarify that
Put the
you're talking
date.
about 19.
Yeah, okay. Now, and I'm just saying to you, my rudimentary math says that if I took all of the increases that were in multiples of 50, each 50 representing a penny, it came out to about 32 cents. And-
I would just confirm that with
I have to
Jason.
confirm that.
Yeah.
And then when I decided, and I did this, I was doing this at home, and I trying to figure the math out. And since the suggested increase this year is 12 cents, that's how it's 12 cents. I kind of tried to rough a number that would be, and that 13 could be a wrong number, I'm trying to, whatever it is, if it's 32 is an exact estimate, I had 31.5, and it's gonna be 12, the difference is what the available funds offset.
Should
That's
you,
what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? I don't know the exact numbers yet, but does that make sense to you? I mean, you couldn't get if it's only gonna be a 12-cent increase only, right, from last year, how do you get to 12 from 32 if 32 is the right number?
Yeah, and what you're saying is because they are
They had to
using
use other
funds.
funds.
Right. Which they typically do, right? So they tax up to the levy limit or a little below it, right? That's like $1 million something dollars or 900,000 that they take. And then, without going up to the limit, and then, all of the revenue and stuff like that that pours in against, then that pretty much determines how much of the tax they need to impose in order to get to the
And the
59,
levy's like
60 million.
37 million or something like
Right.
that, and so
Yep.
the budget's 59 million. so-
Yep, exactly. And you take all of the sources of revenue and you offset that, plus the chapter 11, or 9, no, chapter
70.
70 funds, blah, 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 and then bam, come up with a number.
That has to be flushed out and be more accurate.
And so it's interesting because you said Jason agreed with the 12-cent increase.
That's their roughing the numbers right now, that's what they believe it'll turn out to be.
Seems high.
Yeah.
Seems really high.
It went from 82 to 94 or something like that, I'm trying to get the
Well,
number.
and no, last year, I think, when
Went down.
it finally shook out, it went down.
Yeah. which is maybe the reason why it went up this year. I mean, we were playing games, like, you know.
Well,
But-
last year's budget, if you remember, was flat, and then
Yeah.
there was almost $2 million that was turned back. You know what I mean? Which added to that 7 million kitty, which is, that's pretty high.
Which is still one of the things that should have done. I mean, you call it a turnback, but it's still tax dollars that have been paid,
Of course.
you know?
I mean, ideally, it should have been, you know, like, you know, you'd say, go, we'll give it back to the taxpayer, right? One would say,
You don't.
we overtaxed people, right? But that revenue was used, as you correctly say, this year to
Right.
offset the rate.
Yeah.
But they don't like to, Don doesn't like to use that much of free cash in order to offset the budget.
Well, and we're using free cash now to build this capitalization for CPI, you know, so. I just said, based on a very well-defined service expectation, that, again, is a leap of faith, saying that all the service that's being provided has been well-defined, and that the people are doing their job. That's what it means. Combined with a well-defined management needs, saying Rodney and those guys understand what they have to do from a management perspective.
Right.
Again, leap of faith. Complicated by contractual negotiated salary and wage packages. Which I'm trying to say there is that no matter how good they are, no
Yep.
matter how tight they play it, those negotiated salary packages are taking a bigger bite year after year after year.
That's the increase. If
Yeah.
anything, they're
It-
robbing
it-
Peter.
It is a salary, wage, and benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a benefit.
It was, the
for
health,
part
the
of that.
healthcare's,
Packages, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Packages, but, yeah.
healthcare's a big hit. It's not, you know, just the, you know, wage
Well, we-
increase.
Again, I haven't got there, because one of the things we talked about was, why don't we go along? Can we get
Yeah.
better rates going along?
Oh, God.
I mean,
Hard to say.
it would be nice to know,
It'd be nice to know.
Yeah.
but.
It'd be nice to know that they looked.
Correct.
I say a mathematical expectation of tax rate exceeded last year's end results by, that, and if I'm right, I don't know if it's right, but I know that we're gonna have a tax rate based on just the budget of a substantial amount of money, if we didn't have any offsetting funds.
Right.
It's funny because the 904 seems low, because for some reason I thought it was like 912 or something. I mean, I know it went down last year. I just don't remember by how much.
Yeah.
3 cents. 908, wasn't it 911? Now it's 908.
911, right, I was gonna say 911. Now it's 908.
908.
So if
Maybe
you're gonna,
this is the,
so up 12 is,
Just made it include the water.
940.
Is that the
No,
water,
9.
Mashpee water not involved in that? No. I'll get the numbers anyways. Make sure.
I guess the only reason why I bring it up is just double check your, and I would put the onus on Jason.
Yep. And I just said it was only by imaginative use of available funds that the end result was deemed reasonable. And I'm not sure that's even an accurate statement, whether it's deemed reasonable or was kept,
And was it imaginative?
huh?
Was it imaginative?
Yeah, I don't, no.
That sounds, to me,
Yeah.
it lends like, oh, we just kind of threw some things against the wall and there we go.
What are you trying to say there, Mike?
It was, well, basically I'm saying it was only because of the available funds that we were able to reduce the ultimate
Right,
tax rate.
right.
Okay, then,
I think that's a
Like
good
I
way to
say,
say
it was only because of available funds? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
that's,
Yes, if
Yeah.
that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay. Then the tax rate, again, I'm just throwing it out there, I don't know exactly what it would be. We suggest you take the appropriate time to fully analyze where your tax dollars are being spent by familiarizing yourself with the details around each article. I mean, that's just common sense. Any questions or want additional information, present your concerns to any member of the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, or Town Management. This is your time. Does the gist of the letter seem okay if I get the right numbers, or is there
Yes.
something you should add?
I would put all the numbers, you know, instead of 13 like cents, $0.13. I would be consistent with your numbers.
Yeah, the numbers here they had, yeah.
And also, what I did one time too, and I can forward it to you, I'm pretty sure I still have it in my drive. I sort of indented bullets, so it was like Article, 10, indented bullet, article thing, and I think they actually took and put some shading behind it, so it sort of popped off the page a little bit.
Okay.
I'll show you how that came out, I'll send that to you.
Now, I think, it was 904, but I don't think the water tax thing is in there, right?
No, it's not.
I think it's 908.
Is there, did they add the CPC on top of that?
CPC's on top of that.
So, yeah,
So 904 just represents.
This
the
budget,
municipal School, the omnibus, omnibus.
Omnibus. Which bus are you on?
So that 904, I mean, that's not gonna be the end result tax rate. It's gonna be more like if you add the 3 or 4% for the water.
that's a couple of
and-
pennies.
Probably over 10.
probably 914.
This is a pretty big increase.
What I'd like to do, if you guys are okay with it, is take all this and work with you, Kathy, get all the final information that we can on the language on the articles.
Yep.
To Terry, as quick as we can, so she can plug them in.
Yep, I'll send you a rough,
Okay.
and we can tweak it.
And then I'll talk to Jason about the numbers and stuff like that, and get back to you guys with another draft copy of what if you guys want to throw something back at me, feel free to do so.
Just for clarification, the PEG, Public Educational and Governmental.
You know something, we all knew that.
Just checking to see if you wanted to do it.
Like ours better.
Who'd you
I
send
had to
it?
know that years ago, I think I voted
you
for
send
the
the text
cable
to?
budget, Google. Public
Did
education.
you really?
Ooh, PEG.
Oh, you made it sound like you were smart.
I tell you, Mr. Chairman, it's a learning experience. Every time you walk through the door, you learn something, and it's great to work with a great group of people, so thank you. Enjoyed this year.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the hard work of everybody here. And I think we can only do what we can do.
It's up to the town.
I think we want to be positive, so.
Yep.
We have no meeting next week unless you feel the need to have a meeting. I have to get final article language, and the stuff we're talking to you about, the language in here, so that they can get this thing put together by April 4th. Is that not right?
Correct.
So if you want to meet, we can meet. If you think you're comfortable with my,
The fourth is Wednesday?
yeah, we only have a couple days.
It's next,
Yeah,
Wednesday.
If you want to meet on Tuesday, we can do it, and wrap things up if you think you're comfortable with and I guess we can communicate, as long as we can't talk with each other. We send stuff out. Kathy can send stuff out. I'll leave that up to you. We got some loose ends, but I think the articles are all done.
yeah,
The loose end basically is the letter and the number.
yeah.
You tell me what you want to do.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine.
Okay,
And the meeting in May?
May 7th,
May 7th.
6 o'clock.
So between now and May 7th, probably sometime in April, I'll reach out to you guys and offer to take you guys all out for a couple drinks and stuff to celebrate the successful FinCom.
Town meeting, we meet at 7 or 6:30?
We meet at-
Oh, 6.
We meet at 6 in a joint meeting with the
Okay.
selectmen.
Yep, okay.
I make a motion that we dismiss.
Second.
I'd rather adjourn, but we can.
Whatever.
Chris?
Aye.
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 I
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry it's so late.
Right.